did you say goodbye? It's better to say goodbye. Why did you say goodbye? It's better to say goodbye. So why did you say goodbye? Quiet like the ocean, with the rumble running deep. This is how I see you, when you hide your feels from me. Why you heavy-hearted? Cut the silence, talk to me. Release your mind, get what you need. Easily, we've been falling in disbelief. I think I'm ready for another try, but this feels like the last time. So why did you say goodbye? It's better to say goodbye. Why did you say goodbye? It's better to say goodbye. So why did you say goodbye?
Deep minds, we were forced to be alone. Unknowns and nowhere is the same. And even when it seems like there's no way out, we'll grow a little closer. We water, we flow. All of us together, we're good, we flow. Nothing is the same at all. Oh, back, oh, oh, back, oh, oh, back. 'Cause we're better together, better as one. 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 Deep minds, we were forced to be alone. Unknowns and nowhere is the same. Grow a little closer, we're water, we flow. All of us together, we're good, we flow. Nothing is the same, but oh, oh, back, oh, oh, back, oh, oh, back. Cause we're better together, better as one. 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 take your pain and turn it into pleasure. Into pleasure. As time goes by, my love grows stronger. Can you feel it the same way I do? As time goes by, I can't wait any longer. Just say that you'll be with me too. As time goes by, my love grows stronger. Can you feel it the same way I do? As time goes by, I can't wait any longer. Just say that you'll be with me too. Just say that you'll be, say that you'll be. I'd be there for you whenever you need me. Whenever you need me. But you've been holding back. Maybe you're just not ready. Baby, do you feel the same? Or do you feel the pressure? I promise I can take your pain and turn it into pleasure. Into pleasure. As time goes by, my love grows stronger. Can you feel it the same way I do? As time goes by, I can't wait any longer. Just say that you'll be with me too. As time goes by, my love grows stronger. Can you feel it the same way I do? As time goes by, I can't wait any longer. Just say that you'll be with me too.
Keep running, we coming, ain't nothing stopping us now. Keep running, we coming, we got nothing stopping us now. Keep running, we coming, ain't nothing stopping us now. Keep running, we coming, we got nothing stopping us now. Keep running, we coming, ain't nothing stopping us now. Keep running, we coming, we got why did you say goodbye? It's better to say goodbye. Why did you say goodbye? It's better to say goodbye. So why did you say goodbye? Quiet like the ocean, with the rumble running deep. This is how I see you, when you hide your feels from me. Why you heavy-hearted? Cut the silence, talk to me. Release your mind, get what you need. Easily, we've been falling in disbelief. I think I'm ready for another try, but this feels like the last time. So why did you say goodbye? It's better to say goodbye. Why did you say goodbye? It's better to say goodbye. So why did you say goodbye?
Deep minds, we were forced to be alone. Unknowns and nowhere is the same. And even when it seems like there's no way out, we'll grow a little closer. Through water, we flow. All of us together, we're good, we flow. Nothing is the same, but I'll back. I'll back. I'll back. 'Cause we're better together. Better as one. 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 Deep minds, we were forced to be alone. Unknowns and nowhere is the same. Grow a little closer, we're water, we flow. All of us together, we're good, we flow. Nothing is the same, but I'll back. I'll back. I'll back. Cause we're better together. Better as one. 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 pain and turn it into pleasure. Into pleasure. As time goes by, our love grows stronger. Can you feel it the same?
Move the work and I'm out of here. Murder the tune, it's a body here. Reviving the beat, then it's right back to sleeping. I use a technique that they got me here. Whoa. 10 feet ahead of you, catch me is something you'll never do. I turn around.
What's the challenge? A little bit greater HP for Victor. The boost is up.
It's incredible. It's how it feels at the top.
Just separation could be the reason why they don't close out this game, swaying on the top.
I give it. Look in my eyes.
There's lying X, looking to swing on through on the side of it.
I got a lot on the line. Fish with a different approach. Want to spend time in the boat.
Close together and grouped up. A good nade might find all they're looking for. Leg C, leg X.
Guys, we are back finally. I know we've had 3 days off, but it is the PUBG Mobile Pro League Western Europe summer. It's actually kind of summer. It's this fall season of 2022. I'm your host, Jessica Kaplan, joined by Maxman and Kalaris to break down what's all happening these last 3 days, but more importantly, start talking about what's happening in these next 3 days, because it will be the end of the first phase of play, but we still have to obviously finish those games until then. But obviously I have to give a big shout out here to, well, Monster Energy, official energy drink partner here of PMPL. I'm curious to see what Maxman will drink his Monster out of this time. But also for you guys at home, make sure to check out all of our social media channels, because you can follow us and see some spicy posts that have been put up over on Instagram. Also, gentlemen, the Magic Man Max. Maxman. Magic Cool Man?
Magic Man. It's me.
Magic Man. There we go. I couldn't remember which one it was. But gentlemen, we finally do have information on PMGC. Now, Max, I know you don't like hosting,
Oh, no.
but I want you to introduce it.
Okay. Oh, are we having the graphic pop? There we go. It's here. Look at that. It's great. Yeah, of course, we knew already pretty much that teams are going to be aiming for the PMGC. We just didn't know how that was going to happen, but now we do. Now we do. So for qualification directly through the PMPL, it's going to be the accumulation of your points from PMPL Western Europe spring and fall season. So of course, you're going to see teams like TJB, Game Lord being in a really good spot at the start of the season, or they can just qualify into the championship and qualify in one of those top positions. That's another way. A good way for the new CIS teams to make into PMGC would be through the championship. But now, more than ever, the teams know now how to qualify. So this PMPL fall season is going to be so much more important for the teams at the top to make sure they don't fall off.
Yeah, I think we're going to need to have some sort of graphic showing us what kind of points the teams are currently sitting on here, Kalaris, is like a side note to keep in mind, because it's pretty big, right? We have to think about, obviously, Live It coming into play, but think about getting to the finals, think about getting every single point you possibly could. And if it wasn't already important enough to get as many points as possible to obviously get the extra advantage going into the finals, well, now it's for PMGC.
No, definitely. For some of the teams, as Max says here, in terms of already playing spring out, they're going to have a huge leg up against a lot of these teams. And as he also said, for some of these teams, it will be all about that championship if they can even get there, never mind anything else. So for some of these teams, there is a lot on the line for positioning himself extremely high, if not winning it all for that European Championship.
And some teams have to, considering there's no chance for them to catch up in points, whether they're a newer team or whether they're just that far down. We're going to see a lot of pushing, a lot of teams fighting here, very strong, because it is the most coveted event in PUBG Mobile esports every single year, and everyone wants to beat Nova in the finals. But guys, let's take a look maybe at what's happened these last 3 days of play. And one thing we always talk about in the show is consistency. Let's take a look at how our top 8-ish teams did compared from day 1 to day 2 to day 3. And I mean, out of consistency's sake, Eastern Star has been one of the most consistent teams we've got.
Exactly. Like, they've been the silent kind of performers of the lobby.
Silent consistenters?
Any consistenters in the chat? Okay, I don't know. No, Eastern Stars have been able to remain consistent throughout all 3 days. Really good stuff from them. MADBULLS also on their first and third day, but you look at MADBULLS and QODEX, they had one big pop-off day, and as we said, it was going to be very hard to replicate it, Kalaris, and they were not able to replicate it at all, and QODEX in particular really fell off from like a 79-point game to like a 30 and a 29-point day. That one really hurts them.
Yeah, absolutely. They were definitely anomalies, I think, in the tournament as a whole so far. For me, for Codex's day 1, going into day 2 and 3, I posed the question going into day 2 whether or not Codex could keep it up in terms of the points gain, because I will say in that day 1, yes, they got themselves 2 chicken dinners. However, the way in which they got, I would say one of the chicken dinners, less so the other one, was a little bit fortunate in terms of circles and how they were kind of focusing down on those guys. So we'll see if they can kind of kick back into that gear for the day number 1 of this second half of the phase. That was a bit more complicated than I thought it was going to be. But overall, yeah, Codex, I think, could have another day like that, but it would have to be at a stretch.
Well, you're talking about them kicking it back into gear. What about teams trying to get into gear? One of those teams is TJB. Is going to dive into them a little bit more. The winners of PMPL Western Europe last season. They played in the European regionals, they played in PMWI, and they did not live up to the standards that we were hoping for. However, they have been improving quite a bit here in this event.
And they are a team, just like Gamelord, that has a chance of potentially qualifying directly throughout PMPL points into PMGC, so they really need to have a good performance this season if they want to make it up there. But you're going to see at the player stats, GK First is popping off. Great. Pretty much what we expected. But the question I brought up on the first part of this phase was, I want to see that team play. I want to see that team effort, that synergy, right? We didn't see it for a big portion of the spring season. It did come a little bit later on, especially in the finals, reason why they were able to actually win the finals, but it's still a one-man show I'm seeing a lot of the time right now for GK First. So I want to see XT, I want to see Ting, I want to see Lin be up there next to him. If that's not the case, then Gamelord technically should be the ones to really take that first place for PMGC.
Yeah, a one-man show, but even in the first day or two, I felt like it was a no-man show, right? Like GK First only kind of showing up towards that kind of final moments of the first half of this phase. They need more consistency off the back of all of this, considering that they come in as the previous champions. But we did see them kind of flounder in what was previously the league stage in spring, then moving into the championship, they actually were able to do something with it, or at least the finals, they were able to do something with it. So yeah, we'll see if that shaky roller coaster can find themselves a steady plateau.
Yeah, and for TJB's sake, I think out of all the teams we have playing, they have, besides, I guess, Na'Vi maybe, the most international experience out of any other team in this lobby. And yet, they still struggle when it comes to PMPLs. It's not like they ran away with it when it came to last season. They still had to compete, to fight. But hopefully for TJB's sake, they'll continue to improve.
Yeah.
The problem is, what's that, Galaris?
I mean, hopefully, I mean, as we were alluding to here, I mean, I felt like PMWI would be a perfect staging ground for them to gain even more experience over some of these teams, right? But it hasn't felt that way yet, and I'm hoping we see that materialize. You know what I mean?
I think the thing that's been pulling them back a little bit has been those roster changes that come back every season, I have the impression. If they can find one roster and stick to it, I think that long term it's going to be super worthwhile for them. But unfortunately, they have to keep making those changes, and it's hard to like be on top of your game right at the start of the season when you make changes as drastic as they have.
That's very true, but the thing is, there's a bullseye on their back with teams knowing they have the most points, or one of the most points going into PMGC. And for teams like VIRTUS.PRO, maybe, I think the PMGC points is going to be very difficult, but VIRTUS.PRO are on the rise here. Let's actually dive into them a little bit, because they are looking to be one of those teams that makes it into the regionals and then qualifies through PMGC from that.
Yeah, exactly. Like the European Championship is the only way that VIRTUS.PRO will make it. I would like to say it's impossible. I don't like using the word, but it is impossible for them to qualify 3 PMPL points alone, so they need to aim for that. And also, the cool thing about the championship, we don't know how many spots are there. It could be 1, 2, 3 teams. We're not sure currently. So there's a very big chance that VIRTUS.PRO could be qualifying in that way. And really, Kalaris, they've been having such a steady improvement day after day after day. Day 1, no, didn't see too much of VIRTUS.PRO, but then they got that chicken dinner on the final game of day 2. And that's where the momentum kind of kicked in, I had the impression, for VIRTUS.PRO. And Old Boy in particular, and this guy's aiming for the MVP spot right now. He was on fire on day 3.
Yeah, definitely so. I feel like there's a world where, of course, we thought that the CIS teams would kind of rise up throughout that first half of the phase. VIRTUS.PRO was the one to do it. Na'Vi less so. I think our eyes are still on Na'Vi to try and have that big bump up, considering the caliber of players that are there. But VIRTUS.PRO definitely outshone them, as you're seeing here with some of the highlights coming in from them. And again, I feel like for VIRTUS.PRO, there's probably a bit of a fire lit under them, even compared to Na'Vi. I think there's maybe a bit more hunger there, considering Oboe was previously on that roster. Now he's here, kind of leading these guys into a steady position. And with the 6th place currently under their belt in that last day, I think that they can continue this kind of form.
I mean, if we're talking about, we were just mentioning that TJB, they have the most international experience as a team out of any other team here. But if we're talking individuals, Old Boy probably has the most experience out of everyone in this entire lobby because he's been playing for such a long time. He's played in the higher echelons in big, massive international events. And now this is his bounce back. He's been there before and he's trying to, distribute that information, dilute it here through his team. And we're starting to see them step up. So maybe things are kicking in for him.
Yeah, I always like comparing teams like this to, for example, SGG, where you have that one experienced player internationally, which is Silas, and he feeds that information, that knowledge to the rest of his team. And now SGG is clearly one of the best teams out there in the world, I would say, coming out from Turkey. And we're seeing something similar happen with VIRTUS.PRO, and that was Old Boy giving that information, feeding that intel to the rest of their team, and everyone is improving thanks to that. So currently, they're looking to be top of the region, but I think that when it comes to contenders for the championship to make in PMGC that way, VIRTUS.PRO is definitely a high-tier contender for that position.
Yeah, honestly, I'd love to see them qualify, but they have quite a gauntlet to run through. But let's talk about maybe another team here. Death Machine. We've seen them previously as Clear Vision, as I'm having a little stroke there for some reason. We know they're an insanely strong team, but they've also had their ups and downs, but also, I guess, a level of consistency across all three of these maps.
The thing that I like about Death Machine, as you say, previous Clear Vision, is that from tournament to tournament, it seems like they haven't really lost their edge too much, right? There were moments where, okay, maybe, yeah, we have this compound, okay, we don't quite be able to kind of materialize a victory from it because we just don't have the gear available to us. But that's less of a player skill thing and more of a, we've kind of wound up in this situation and there's not much more we can do because we can't flex out of this compound because there are so many eyes on us at that moment in time. So I think the skill is definitely there here for Death Machine. And I look forward to seeing how they're going to play out this last half of the phase.
I would say last season when you were looking at Clear Vision at the time, one of their biggest skills was being able to convert finishing moments into a win a lot of the time. I think they struggled maybe a little bit time to time, but they are able to convert it in quite a few eliminations. We saw then like 2 games of Miramar in particular. So I think they still have it, as you mentioned already, but I still think that they need to get used a little bit to their roster changes and also this new lobby before we find some kind of consistency from these guys.
Okay, well, our first match is just right around the corner here, so let's get an idea of, I guess, maybe the last 5 matches first. So looking for the right-hand side. I mean, 21 points, 12-12, like 5. They're just continually racking in points. I think they're 4th overall, if I'm not mistaken. So they're not necessarily breaking through to be the top of the pack, but they're putting themselves in a very comfortable position for later on.
Most noticeably, that 21-pointer game was a 2nd place with 9 eliminations, right? So it wasn't even a win, which means that even given kind of final circle moments, even if they're not getting the chicken dinner, they're still able to bag quite a few points off the back of it, because these guys are good fraggers. I think you got to be careful of them in those final circles.
Death Machine. These guys are good fraggers. That's their tagline now. Let's take a look at the matches for today, though. If you guys remember back to last week, we did mention that every cycle, mini cycle, every 3 days, we do go back to the original map orders. So we're heading back to double Erangel and double Miramars with 1 Sanhok today. However, tomorrow we'll be going into double Erangels, double Sanhoks, and day 3 will be double Miramars and double Sanhoks. So we're kind of going back to what the teams know. What's up, Max?
And Livik. Again, I don't want to forget about Livik.
Oh, on day 6, yes.
I'll wait for some crabgrass, Kalaris. Now, what do you think?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Hey, crabgrass.
He does, to be fair. At PMWI, every time we saw crabgrass as like the final zone, he was just,
don't go.
Back.
Don't go in
Exactly
crabgrass.
that. Good impression.
Stay out of crabgrass, please. Yeah, anyway.
Okay, well, I believe we're ready for the first match. I don't know. I'm not necessarily getting confirmation on that, but I'm assuming we are. Not quite ready, actually. I'm going to change my mind on this one. But, gentlemen, then we going into our second week of play. It's technically our still first phase. I'm curious if you're focused on any teams in particular, because they've had 3 days off. Teams have had the ability to sit back, relax, watch the VODs back, try to improve on their own gameplay. Is there anyone maybe you're leaning towards of needing to have a bigger day, or anyone that you might expect to have a big day here?
We had some good surprises like MADBULLS, QODEX, etc., like Death Machine, but if there's one team that we have to see step up in the second part of this first phase, it has to be Na'Vi, right? Especially because when it comes to qualifying for Livik, it's top 12. They're currently in 14th. They were not even qualified to like the first off game for like some of the top teams. So Na'Vi is one I'm looking at. Ruthless also, I think, are the 2 teams at the bottom that I need to see improvement from them in today's matches.
For me, I feel like Eastern Stars, I would love to see them continue on this consistent path that they've found for themselves, because again, in previous seasons, we know it better than anybody. They were an absolute roller coaster. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Calm down, guys. You're going to make me sick. But Game Lord as well, I think that they can also convert more points, considering the roster that they have available to them. And And for a long time, I think a lot of us saw them as the kings of Western Europe in terms of the performances they were able to put up. But 5th, I think they can be higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, Game Lord did phenomenally well when it came to our league stage last year, and I guess in the Super Weekends, but when it came to the finals, they struggled. I would love to see Game Lord play actually at a big international event. Though, again, when you go into like the European regionals with what's on the line, it's very tough, I think, for all the teams who don't have that experience to then rise to the occasion to make it into PMGC and then potentially do it again. It's going to be tough for any team that gets out of here and into regionals. And
it's the most stable day as well for these guys to try and put themselves on the board here in the phase, right? It's the double Erangel, the double Miramar, just the one Sanhok for them to be playing out this. So there's, I mean, of course, there's the rotating lobbies as we've always got to kind of account for with the groups as a whole. But this is one of the most stable days, a great opportunity for those teams that can find consistency to put consistency on the board.
Exactly, and I would also say for Gamelord, I had the chance to talk with Pekko, the coach of the team, and he said that they're clearly aiming to improve and prepare for PMGC throughout this PMPL. It's an interesting approach, don't get me wrong, I think it's a completely valid approach for the PMGC, but they're not sure to make it yet. And because you got teams like Eastern Stars being above them, they were a clear contender in the past, they're not 100% confirmed to go there. So I would say focus on PMPL first, and then do scrims or prepare where you want, but PMPL is not your prep ground for PMGC. Qualify first, then think about your prep.
Yeah, they're kind of like thinking about the finish line when they still have yet to start the race. That's a little bit weird to see them like, I don't know. I'm glad you actually heard that from him because it's such an odd thing. But again, if they can back it up, if they can prove they deserve to be in PMGC, then I'd be more than happy. I did want to mention one more team though we didn't really touch on really quickly, Pioneer. Because we did focus on them in I believe it was day 3 at the start of the day. They've kind of been like the silent killers. They've not been like super impressive. They've had 2 second-place finishes and a 4th-place finish, but they're just kind of steadily picking up points and not really dropping in ranking at all.
I need to see them get a win. I really want to see them get a win. So far, they're the highest team in placement or in overall points that hasn't got themselves a chicken dinner yet. And they've been close. They've definitely been close in some moments, and I think that they definitely can get it. It's just kind of ironing that out. Because sometimes when you get really deep into one of these tournaments and you still haven't got a chicken dinner, it almost becomes a little bit of a monkey on your back, right? Like, when are you actually going to get it? Because if you can't, you're not going to be the one that eventually gets to #1 up at the top. So, yeah, I need to see that.
Speaking of monkeys, our first game is ready to go here, so let's throw it over to our 2 resident monkeys of John, Allen, and Blake.
Ooh, ha ha, ooh, ah, blank. Ooh, ah, chicken dinner. Very good. Yeah, well, we're going to get to game #1. Me and Mr. Monkey over here are going to be getting right on into the action. It's been a little bit of a break, but we're back into it now. It's good to get back on the reins, and as they're talking about the desk, looking for some teams to start to step up.
Yeah, I mean, we've plugged the bananas now. Now we're going to get into the peel and see what we can see and what we can find in this game of Erangel. Honestly, there's a lot of interesting teams throughout the majority of this lobby. I think that the actual analyst test was able to pick apart a fair few of them. I want to call them monkeys as well. Unfortunately, I cannot because they were working like the infinite monkey theory there because they were really running through it and they were managing to bring out all the best analysis theories and I was happy to see it. I think VIRTUS.PRO is probably one of the ones that I found most interesting though. That contrasted with Pioneers as well, John, considering I think it was that last game of Erangel on day 3 of phase 1 where, you know, Pioneer, yes, they're great at getting in towards the end of the lobby, but VIRTUS.PRO were just on such a tear that, you know, the difference between them and also Pioneer was very, very clear in those last moments where all Pioneer was able to do was maybe pick up a few points with some cheeky little angles. That's all they were able to do. So between those 2 CIS teams, you know, VIRTUS.PRO has definitely got the leg up and they're starting to build momentum. And I think at the pace that Pioneer is going, James is completely correct. They need to really pull it up just a little bit, speed up, put the foot on the accelerator, and get on the motorway now because I think this it's almost silent, you know, B-road gameplay is just not working out for them.
I like that B-road gameplay. Got a couple of twists and turns in there. There's 2 lanes.
Exactly. You got to be careful of the middle bit. Too careful of the corners. Yeah.
It's no motorway. It's no.
Exactly.
Oh, I forgot what the name of it is. The one where you can go really fast in Europe.
The
Autobahn. That's the one.
That's the one. Yeah.
There's no Autobahn.
Yeah. It's
Hard
the
left,
Autobahn.
hard west circle.
That's all right. You know, we're heading straight into the West Circle here, and it's going to shirk a lot of these teams off towards that eastern side. They're going to have to get themselves into position fairly quickly. You know, you're looking at Game Lord, and this is a discussion I did want to have with you, actually, John, was Game Lord in particular, because from what I saw, you know, being in 5th place, that's pretty good, pretty damn decent, right? You know, you're not completely unhappy with it, and I think if we stripped away the logo, we stripped away the name, we stripped away the legacy of these players, you know, looking at Game Lord's gameplay, you'd be like, you know, that's pretty decent. But the difference is that we know the legacy of these guys. They are legends themselves. The issue is that these legends are popping up singular at a time, right? You see Narvalo pop off, you see Robs pop off, you see Victor pop off, but we're not seeing this actual group pop off as one. So I do want to see more of a team win. We saw that at the very first game over in, I believe it was Yasnaya on Erangel, but we've not seen that since. So that's something I definitely want to see coming through from Game Lord.
Hoping for a little bit more from the French team. It looks like Stelba's been a little bit hot over on the north side. Take Aim Gaming and Eastern Stars going at it over there. Yeah. Looks like, is that for Romanian men as well, pretty close by. So should have heard.
Curious drop, right? Yeah, very curious drop. So Eastern Stars already losing 2. Kind of bad for them.
Okay.
I think they were definitely our most consistent team from day to day. And I do want to make a small correction to the desk, small correction, because I think they were saying that, you know, Eastern Stars were the most consistent team there. Yes, by around about 10 point over the 2 other games that MADBULLS had, right? I think it was 40, 42, and somewhere up in the 80s on their second day. Now, you average that out, John, right? That's some really good days overall. Even if they're not hitting that 50 caliber that, you know, Eastern Stars has hit over all 3 days, MADBULLS haven't dropped off hugely on the 2 days where, you know, in quotation marks, they didn't do so well. So I think MADBULLS is definitely another team we need to watch out for. I think you'd be quicker on foot, mate, honestly. Yeah, just...
I don't think... Well...
Downhill. Maybe a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Make sure you're going down the Stelba hill. This is 4 Romanian men who were in this glut on the northeast side, near Eastern Stars, near Take Aim Gaming, all of whom have suffered casualties, except for 4 Romanian men. Rana did get knocked just a moment ago, but was rezzed on out. None of these teams are going to be super fully looted, and there's going to be a West Circle shift as well. So I'm not imagining too much can really be achieved much further into the game, barring getting some really decent loot and maybe a hard shift or 2 to the east side.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how far Eastern Stars can go. They're heading down towards Yasnaya, but they will pass that, right? Surely you know that the guys from the French team of Game Lord is going to be heading towards that position. TJB over towards Lipovka. They do have Xiao in that location at the moment. But Take Aim Gaming are sending a couple over there. So TJB either, you know, regroup on shelter or perhaps take that fight over towards Lipovka, which is unwise considering the circle. You do need to be making your way across towards maybe Potato to do some scouting and then heading down towards the fielded area, perhaps Yellows. Not a bad idea either. On board with Game Lord though, and again, this is something that we talked about in the very initial stages of Phase 1, which is, you know, there's been a lot of fighting in the early game for Western Europe. Usually this is one of our more peaceful regions. You look over towards the NA PMPL, that's where you typically see a lot of those early drops, a lot of teams, you know, dueling it out in the first couple of minutes, but we're getting a much more aggressive gameplay now. And we talked about how it might be the format, and it seems that that is the case, that a lot of these teams are much more prepared to take risks to get as many points as possible instead of just qualifying in that top 16.
Exactly, right? Because it's not about that short sprint to the weekly super weekends anymore. It's about, as they were talking about, consistency, like you said, over these weeks, getting those bonus points in where you can to set yourself up for the finals. Because sure, it's 20 points in first place, but then it's 19 points, 18 points, 17, 16, 17, 16. You know how numbers work, right? Apparently I don't.
I do, yeah.
But that's really going to be huge for so many of these teams. If you could just consistently get into 4th place every week, that's going to be massive for your chances in the finals.
Yeah, but there's also real opportunity for some pop-off days for some of these teams. I believe it was TJB who zoomed up the rankings from low in the teens towards, 18th, 16th, 15th place. They've flown up to 8th place now. You can see them at the top of your screen, just behind Pioneers. Obviously, 82 points to 113. There is a slight drop-off there, so they will have to, earn a little bit more points. But for these teams towards the bottom, like an 80-point day is completely doable, and that will shoot you up the ranking. So you're by no means out now at this point in time. You're not having that full reset every single time. You do have 6 days to try and get towards the top, to try and earn those 20, 19, 17 points and pop those in your bag going forward. You specifically do want to be in that top 12 though, so you can earn a few more of those points over on our final match of Phase 1, which will be Livik. Obviously the points will be adjusted for the 12-team format, but any additional points you can get, I believe like a 20 point is completely doable on Livik, and that can see you the difference between a second and a first place, which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly good to go in with that confidence, right? Sat in first place, you've taken down that week 1. You've got a little bit of breathing room there with a high point week. And of course, it all contributes to the overall bonus as well, right? If you're in all 3 Liviks, you're getting that chance to add to your points total overall in the final standings. You're going to get 3 extra games with all 3 of those to have your extra shot at those extra 20.
Yeah, which is a potential 60-pointer, right? Over, or is it 8 teams in the lobby, which is really, really big. So this is something that every team needs to be looking out for, specifically if you want to be in Western Europe and gunning towards those PMGC points to collectively get into PMGC just off the back of PMPL. It's never a good feeling going into regionals and having to play your minds out, knowing that this is your only entrance into PMGC. This is going to be the case for some of these CIS teams, unfortunately. However, for some of these Western teams, this is now the time where you can build that up. And Max was talking about, Game Lords looking towards PMGC. Right, well, look towards PMPL right now, because this is your route. This is your direct route, okay? You got to make the turn here, stop looking so far ahead, and look more at your GPS right now, which is telling you to bear right and head onto the PMPL track and try and pick up as many points as possible, because this could just be the easiest route into PMGC. Heavy shift over towards that western side. A lot of teams here will be moving through the ruins over towards the fielded side. So Na'Vi do have a decent position just on the south side of Everest and should be able to hold out a couple of these teams.
Yeah, nice spot for them as well. Having the MADBULLS over on that western coast, they'll be safe for now. See how they can fare moving forwards. Likely that the next circle will center up just sort of to the west of Gatka, to the south of Na'Vi. It will come back inland, we hope, if it's to be believed. This is a replay of these hot drops. Okay, so there's some vehicles going on in that northeast side that they were all fighting over. I think this is where the buggy lost all its tires. Yeah, there you go.
Some unfortunate crossfire on the buggy whilst they try and take down Athis there. Did lose both of the wheels. I mean, with the amount of vehicles in that location, though, Take Aim getting very happy at the moment. They are encircling Eastern Stars, who are still just on the eastern side of Yasnaya now, looking for kind of an approach in. I think that they're deciding to head over towards the northern side of the island, which, I'm not too unhappy with. I think that would make the most sense. You know you're not going to go for the win here, so you don't have to force yourself in on that middle side of the island through Gatka Fields and try and find a decent compound central. You're just hoping to live and try and get, at 8th place. Nexus, though, caught slacking, and it's VIRTUS.PRO with some decent shots along the way.
Starting off well for their second week of the first phase. Day 4 with a point in the bag already, Blank. That's good news for the CIS team. Nexus losing Redox early as well. So they are already in a fairly solid position in terms of the real estate they'll have for these next 2 phases.
Yeah, curiously, Octavian's not back in. I think that is one of the big things. So it's not gelling for the Nexus squad at the moment. I don't want to point any fingers, but Eastern Stars appear to have really taken off since his departure from the team. And on Nexus, not enjoying his presence on the team either. So we'll see what happens. Perhaps it's just a case of giving him some time to cool off before he comes back because we know that the guy can pop off, and this is the reason why I feel like I could say this, because we know he's an excellent player. The question is how well he meshes into a team, which seems to be the issue at the moment.
Potentially, I mean, so it's always really difficult to say that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
When it's not coming from the horse's mouth, but it does. All the evidence kind of points that way, just a little bit.
Exactly.
So I'll have to see if he returns in the future. I mean, it'll be an interesting thing to watch unfold, because it's a name that we've seen for so long in this region.
And I hope so as well. I mean, I've said many times before, he's probably one of my favourite players from Western Europe, which is, it does sadden me that he's not playing in Nexus's main roster. Number one fan, Mr. Blank. Yeah, so hopefully he can come back, have something of a better performance for himself. But at the moment, Nexus holding on to Redox, or at least not right now. He did slip through the fingers there to VIRTUS.PRO with a very central position. I do like that it is the MADBULLS as well as VIRTUS.PRO currently going head-to-head. GameLord currently struggling, and that was always going to be a difficult crossing for them. You know, that squeeze in between Hospital and the fields. Lose one player, which will really slow down the rotate. This did not happen as we expected it, John. You know, that central position there. Instead, it heads a little bit further down. There's still water in this, but I think VIRTUS.PRO, you know, TJB, MADBULLS have accurately discerned the location.
I'm looking at this north side and seeing PIONER and Na'Vi moving in at the same time on that western coast. You've got GameLord, Big, and 4 Romanian men all on that north side behind them. I feel like this could get dangerous on the western side, the north of this next circle. A little bit of pressure on that south side, but not quite as much, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I would say that there's definitely pressure now on 4 Romanian men, GameLord, and Big.
Well, there's Eastern Stars as well.
Yeah, and Eastern Stars, just the 2 players there, so they're trying to make their way in. But, you know, heading across this field is a very smart move from Na'Vi and PIONER. I'm not entirely sure who knocked the initial player from GameLord, but if it was either one of these teams, you know, now moving forward this early rather than taking the fight just gives them so much onus on the fights going forward, because most of these teams have to cross that field or come down on the western coast towards PIONER's location. Already you're seeing Big and GameLord start to crash heads here.
Certainly are. I mean, Na'Vi just took a knock. Looks like it should be resable. I think it was across from a compound-to-compound position. You can see them on the south side of that large minimap on the right. Should be all right, but it looks like MUERTE and VIRTUS.PRO taking some pretty deadly fights out here in the swampland. VIRTUS.PRO sending in to try and get some reses. Striker left alone right now. VIRTUS.PRO seemingly doing so much. Was that a 1v4 that was taken up the hill by VIRTUS.PRO? I think it might have been by Tulika. Oh no, Yankee was there as well.
Yeah, they did lose Yankee. They wish to bring Tulika back up, which means they need to speedily get through this wall. That's a good knock on that from Old Boy. He just needs to really delay these reses. Tulika's slowly bleeding out, but this is doable for them.
That knock as well did get flushed on out. Tulika does have a little bit of time. You're right, that bleed out is coming through. Striker potentially wanted to stick the res out wide with the shotgun, but VIRTUS.PRO repositioning. They're hearing these footsteps. English is there. There's information given over, but the spray is on point. VIRTUS.PRO take down MUERTE, get Tulika back to feet. 3 players alive. MADBULLS against Big.
MADBULLS here. Big crash right into them. They're down to 3. 0 eliminations, so it's a few knocks coming from along the way. Not sure where. The Effect does take down 1. This guy's a contender for the MVP spot, and you can see why, even with the briefest of moments, is able to quickly and efficiently decimate that player.
Without Beast holding that angle, it felt like Beast was in the right spot for it, but just didn't quite spot out Effect. Now the MADBULLS with 3 on the western coast have a little bit of a shift to get on board with. Eastern Stars, the remaining 2 players to get taken down there. And the MADBULLS disengage in the meantime.
Very tough circle here, John, honestly. Does give a little bit of a break towards these northern teams. GameLord, unfortunately, did choose to try and head down on that western coast. Big were able to get ahead of them. In the way, though, you can see they've got themselves over towards that western side of the circle, and now GameLord have to contend with PIONER. PIONER are taking shots as they step up over towards that side from Na'Vi. They're currently outside the circle, so they'll have to make a move soon. Big does spot TJB, though, on a very big split at the moment.
Lin has a big old gun. I think it's a K9 in the pocket. Maybe trying to tap one or two of those headshots there. Across the way over towards Big. Could prove to be important. I feel like Na'Vi's rotation has been fairly straightforward up until this point, because Gamelord now crashing into them on the north side. They've played it fairly well. It looks like Gamelord are struggling to make this aggressive push. Na'Vi were in a 1-2-1. It looks like they've backed up together in a 3-1 now. It's taking that fight with Gamelord. It's going well for the 3-stack.
Yeah, Kitsune had to play Anchor here, so really it's down to Na'Vi now to hold off the remaining players from Gamelord. They were injured heavily from Pioneer, still taking shots towards his position. Remember, they were taking shots beforehand towards Na'Vi in the first place. They do find one in Tixi, and now Meku's just dropping smokes to try and relieve some pressure from the back. 2 nades about to be thrown. That comes back and robs. Whiffs badly, and Matic might just want to go for it.
Arvalo now last, standing for Gamelord. Potential to just post a nade in, but Pioneer here as well. Crunching in this fight. Gamelord, I don't think they make it out of this alive, Blank. Nades now from Matic, popping on over towards Pioneer. I think they know there's players there. 4 Romanian men have sight lines onto the back. That's why this smoke is here for Na'Vi, so that they have some cover. The Gamelord are the main struggle bus occupants right now.
The Gamelord, it's just time to zip the lips and stay quiet and hope to God that, you know, this fight starts to pop up between Pioneer as well as Na'Vi. This crash actually gave a great opportunity for Pioneer to get into position. Black-White tries to take an off angle, but Na'Vi's not so silly.
4 Romanian men disengaging from oversight in that fight. Na'Vi potential respite from it. Ruthless Esports pushing up to the position. Pocus just on that ridgeline. 2 of his teammates are down and needs to find some sort of retribution, but the nade from Andre in the back is good, on the money. Now Ulysses, last standing for Ruthless, spotted out in the grass, has to duck back behind the ridgeland, and you think that he couldn't get out of this one. I don't feel like this is rescuable for the rest of the teammates. Ulysses probably solo from here on out.
Yeah, even if he is able to get back up again, his position's known. That fight is still popping off on the northern side. Still 1 player down for Gamelord, not able to quite get him back up again. You can see he's starting to throw the smokes to cross. And with this little ridge, you know, there is availability to try and get players up. But for Romanian men, you can see that they're not going to allow this.
Not so easily. Ruthless Esports, last player, Ulysses, trying to take some shots. Okay. Potential for a res to be stuck here if Killer doesn't quite swing around into it. Looking through these smokes, looking for these downed players, hops out, looks for the player there. Killer is spotted out, and now Ulysses has a second cannon at his back to try and take some of these shots with him. Take that trade. The re-knock comes through, but Ulysses is still there. Nades looking to pour on through for Romanian men, dispatching this threat in order to move westward after the engagement. That nade's a little bit wide. Rana taken low, but Ulysses loses half HP. Rana down. Ulysses back to the deck, but the burn is on. The heat turned up now as Ulysses pops out. No more knocks to be found. 4 Romanian men stay alive.
You know, Ulysses has been very clutch recently for Ruthless Esports. Unfortunately, that was a very tough scenario that was laid ahead of him. He's not quite able to complete the mission for the rest of the team, but I will say, you know, there's been a lot of pressure been put on Pocus recently from Ruthless Esports to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Ulysses, you know, being the IGL, really taking the team through just in terms of mentality's sake. You know, he's been doing good in that front, but now he's starting to pop off in terms of a fragger. This fight does continue between Na'Vi and Pioneer. Gamelord, unfortunately, were dashed earlier on in this game.
They're losing on out. Looks like Na'Vi have a really solid line of fire against Pioneer's progression routes towards the south side, which they will have to make. Kitsune, that forward player for Na'Vi, scouting, getting that anchor point down. Doing work right now. VIRTUS.PRO, though, might have an idea that there's a player there.
TJB out in the thick of it for a little too long. They were splitting positions constantly, but weren't able to find anywhere to call home, or at least set up some kind of fortress. Big have done really well this game. You know, on that western rotate, it's not been easy for them, but now they have a big challenge ahead of them.
And there's fights coming in from the back as well. They can just hold out the top of this hill line, stay out of it, and Pioneer might be able to sweep this one up, or Nexus could take them down. Either way, that's less threat for them. A nade in from Meheat. puts the fear on him, but no one is close from Pioneer. Nades are all that's going to happen here from Big down the hill. A nade over, doesn't quite find any of these players going down, but Fash is out in the blue, wants the spray over to Mihi. The heals are good. They're going to have to shimmy into the east just that little bit. Nades keep on pouring in, and what can you do?
Yeah, for me, he has to be really careful, but that's ARB champions coming in from behind. Some nice shots along the way. There's some really long shots too, but it's the MADBULLS are slowly moving up, heard this third party, and are here to, you know, take it all away from Big, who've done a fantastic job to get this far. Now just Beast remaining in the smoke.
MADBULLS trying to sweep through. Take Aim Gaming eliminated. Beast. Standing, has a nade pin pulled. Effect just over the lip, might suffer from it, but the nade not quite cooked long enough. And now he knows what's up. Beast, here's that pin. Dueling nades right now. Who's going to get it out first? A little bit off the money, and Effect nails the shot.
It's an awkward throw there for Beast, honestly. He's not able to get the same arc as Effect is able to in that situation where he's much closer to the ridge line. And a bit more of a downhill. VIRTUS.PRO, though, looking to hold off versus ARB champions there. 2 compounds held, VIRTUS.PRO just outside the circle, but MADBULLS taking that huge wrap on the western side. Look how much space they've been able to clear for themselves. You can see on the minimap on the top right, there's absolutely no players on that western side, so MADBULLS should be able to creep in. Unfortunately, it's all fielded areas, so smokes will be critical here. Luckily, there's about 1 million death crates over in that location.
Yeah, it seems like the number of teams has dropped really, really fast. We're down to 5 now, and with the teams all playing around this sort of pothole swamp here, it's kind of a kill zone going on. Nobody really able to disengage super effectively. ARB kind of trapped right now until they can deal with all of these threats on the ridgelines.
Yeah, there's so much fighting. This is a perfect opportunity for MADBULLS, and I think they're just about getting an idea of the lay of the land that's ahead of them. Arab champions, Alubadia, the Shockwave start to fly in with 4.
Moving through, the only real threat, I would say, right now, but VIRTUS.PRO getting out of here. Probably a solid heads-up rotation. Hamodi now last standing for ARB. Likely to fall, but to who is the question? Who picks up the point? Shockwave player going down to VIRTUS.PRO. They try and equalize those numbers. Shockwave pick up the pieces of the fight, but Nightmare still needs rezzed. And there's knocks over towards VP as well. MADBULLS entering.
That is a really, really good knock there coming through from the MADBULLS. Extremely needed. You know, if they can continue to delay both these teams making their way into the circle, you can see the blue is right at their back, and it will push them just over the ridgeline into the sightlines of MADBULLS. So a very, very critical knock coming through with the VP, so they couldn't rotate into position fast enough. And now there's all eyes from MADBULLS just sat in the line towards them. I think Shockwave and VP both understand that, you know, this is a second place fight for both of them.
It would take a miracle. Shockwave have the numbers right now. Trazen stimming up before the fight. Need to make sure that yellow bar's full. Get that tick of HP healing when you can. Effect. Moves forwards, but the circle, I think that's what you're doing.
Yeah, that is really important for VP. Smokes are going to be very, very useful to them. They do have a crate in front of them now. If MADBULLS can get in vehicles and hit that crate early on, you know, that'll give them a great spot in the circle. The issue is that there's so much attention split between Shockwave and VP that it's going to have to be really quick on the swivel to stop MADBULLS from doing this. You can see them starting to throw the smokes out to clear some position in front of them. I'm just wondering at what moment will they hit that crate to try and set up some impromptu cover.
Utility separating Shockwave. VIRTUS.PRO right now. Final 3 teams in the lobby. Looks like Nightmare wants to move forwards. Clear out VP if they can. Tulika, not too many nades to play with. The Molly sent back their way as well. Look at the damage on that armor. Really hefty stuff. Difficult to play from this position. VP will try. Nades over the top from Shockwave. MADBULLS across the way did take a little bit of damage, but they're safe for now. Nade to Tulika. That might seal the deal for VP.
Yeah, Mir's trying to just duck and dodge, but another great nade. That'll take him out. Now with 3 players, you know, there's a chance here versus MADBULLS, but I just think they leave it too late. And his position's known. He's behind the vehicle. That should explode. Does a fair bit of damage, but does survive.
There's the cover. Can get some heals off now. Can start to regain that health. 3 players up and kicking. Can the res come through for MADBULLS? I feel like it could be pivotal. Is he going to spot him out in the field? Effect crawling through that smoke. Might have drawn the attention away. Monkey still suffering. And SHOCKWAVE, they have the terrain cover here. Sure, there's field cover, there's smokes as well, but the MADBULLS are suffering.
I think the MADBULLS should have identified this third party much sooner and sent the vehicles in towards that loot crate and just played along there and waited for Zone 8. This is a really big misplay from MADBULLS, in my opinion. Now, SHOCKWAVE are able to efficiently drop down the smokes. Yes, they're really lacking on util now. There's 2 smokes there, which will be able to get themselves up in. But now the next circle comes in. And, you know, you couldn't have wanted MADBULLS to move any sooner, than Zone 7. And now SHOCKWAVE, with this next circle, are able to just basically wait out MADBULLS, because Monkey's going to have to leave from that buggy, which is very visible. You're able to see him. And Skills was spotted earlier by Hakone, I believe. So SHOCKWAVE have all the information, the circle to play around with. This has gone from playing for a second place to a really, really strong first place finish from SHOCKWAVE.
With 12 eliminations. The pan sent out into the field. Trying to spice things up. Pan deploy. Hoping to cook up an elimination or 2. 2 is what they'll look for. MADBULLS taking every moment. This crate's still unlooted, by the way, so it could be a refresh.
Yeah, all SHOCKWAVE have to do now is just frustrate the players. Now, not keeping an eye on Skills there is a bit of a mistake. It's a nade that goes over the top, but it's just a little bit too long, especially with the terrain they're playing in. Question is, can they hit it? Skills gets taken down, now just down to 1 player. That was the angle they need to be careful of.
Yeah, that nade not being on the mark. Pretty heavy punishment there. And now Monkey out in the blue. SHOCKWAVE from the depths, roll up that hillside and manage to take control of the field. Their baseline of fire too strong for MADBULLS to cross. And it will be SHOCKWAVE taking home the chicken dinner.
I mean, they just had so long to make a move with that one, John, but they just don't go for it there. It's very confusing to me. Again, I will say this is a misplay from MADBULLS, purely because they had the vehicle advantage there to take up to the middle loot crate and actually set up some kind of impromptu cover versus the 2 teams that were just combating one another over there. And I think with the amount of nades you could hear going off, the shots here and there, and the fact they weren't moving up to take position, I think MADBULLS just, again, they did a really good sweep on that western side and then did absolutely nothing with the space they were able to garner for themselves. SHOCKWAVE, though, I still can't take away from that win because it was very well done. I think this is the first time in a while that we've actually seen SHOCKWAVE step up so massively, and it's a really big win for them.
I mean, this is their first win, right, of the tournament so far. It's their first chicken dinner coming on through, which is absolutely brilliant. Starting the game, I believe, on 61 points at the start of this week's games. And that will careen them really quite far on up. We'll see how high they're able to go a bit later. But yeah, excellent news. Also, kind of excellent news for MADBULLS, because a lot of those teams below them weren't really performing in the way that we expected.
Exactly, so they're the kind of the ones that get the head start on the leaderboard towards the top side at least. I still think this could have been a much more convincing win from MADBULLS, unfortunately. But again, you go for that consistency, John.
All right, well, there we go. MADBULLS flushed out in the fields. Over to the desk.
Not bad. Finally, we get to see SHOCKWAVE, as I have just gone extremely ill for some reason, but we get to see them step up here and pick up a victory, a much-needed victory as well. We talked about Trazen on the team from Game Lord, now over to SHOCKWAVE. Fantastic to see this, man.
Yeah, I mean, as John said, they were on, what was that, 61 points before this game. They were in 17th position. If they want to play Livic at the end of the week, they needed a game like this. I think this might be their ticket to that Livic game at the end of this first phase. But that ridge, we were talking a little bit during that game there, Kalash, but like that ridge was in circle until the very, very last second. Even though MADBULLS, maybe their timing was a little bit off, but beating a team that's in a ridge like that is just such a hard task to achieve.
Oh, definitely. They had a really good spot. I think what Blank was saying, I think MADBULLS could have been even more aggressive, to be perfectly honest. I think that they could have tried to third-party all of that situation just as it happens. Of course, getting that timing right is very finicky. You need to be kind of an ethereal ghost, just like Jason is currently, to be able to get that right.
Well, I'm waiting just to go to match rankings so I can fix it on my end, but
here.
I think they just want to enjoy this great face, you know, radioactivity, whatever. Anyways, yeah, let's actually see the match rankings. That would be nice to see how many points all the teams did get. Or maybe I've stunned the production team.
You know that weird
by my
picture of Mark
face.
Zuckerberg where he's got that, like, this cream on his face, like he's on the beach or something? You look like that right now. That's what you remind me of.
You guys talk while I do some magic.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. But this game, especially towards this position here, the swamp position, a lot of fights were happening most of the time. And that was actually one question that was brought up during that game was the resources that were had by SHOCKWAVE was scared at some point they were not going to have enough. But the fact that they crashed like 3-4 teams and so many teams died in that position, they could easily pick up all the resources, so it was good. But yeah, unfortunately, one team that actually Jason was talking about a little bit earlier is that we haven't seen too much from RUTHLESS. Like, sure, they got himself that one big game on Erangel towards that Stolber finish, but other than that, RUTHLESS has been a little bit invisible this event.
Yeah, I want to see them do more, for sure, here. But I think with SHOCKWAVE taking this win, I feel like with Trazen on that roster and, of course, Terminus, I think it kind of a matter of time before they were able to eventually get a win, even though they kind of have been floundering in the past 3 days of gameplay overall. They did get a second, as well as a third, so some podium finishes go their way. But, I mean, once you get this kind of ridgeline, looking at the very end of the moments of that game, very easy for them to be able to close that out. So we've let Jason depart from this life. He is now gone for a moment, Max. It's just us now. Yes. How you feeling, mate?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I don't feel threatened having Jason here anymore, no, so it's fine. I'm safe for the time being. But really, MADBULLS, and that's a point that Blank did make before the end of that game, there is the MADBULLS did a really good job of clearing all the West. They third party, they were waiting for the teams to like get involved in their own fight, try and push into the circle. You had, what was that, NEXUS, you had Big taking a fight, and they just third party that, and the moment you do that, all the West is your position because it's a field finish. You're not going to have too many teams in that location. So then just clear from the Western side, get a second place was, I would say, very minimal eliminations this entire game. So it's actually really worth waiting for the third party to get all of the extra positions. So MADBULLS, once again, shown that when it comes to macro in particular, they're very aware of their surroundings and know exactly what tricks to pull to try and get towards that finish line.
Yeah, I mean, MADBULLS' position that they had was one of the most powerful on that Western side for quite a long time, because any further east than that spot, you end up in fields. And with what I think it was like 4 teams or so that eventually kind of tried to come in from that west side. How are you going to get past MADBULLS' spot? And then do you even really want to go past their spot? So you're almost kind of forced into these engagements, considering that there's really not that much lying east of them. But on the west side of all things, the fact that VIRTUS.PRO, I feel like, you know, they've got Compat, actually a guy that I've known for quite a while, also coaching them. I feel like I see inspiration in their positions that they're taking off the back of someone like him and his influence. Because, I mean, those guys, the players alone have great map knowledge, but with his mind as well, that will also be able to augment that as time goes on. So I like what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of coaches that were picked up by quite a few teams actually going into this season, and it seemed like it's helped out quite a bit. But one team that could potentially use a coach to make some good changes here would actually be Eastern Stars, I would say. We're talking a little bit at the start of that game. Their drop towards the Stolber location, you can understand it, like normally they like to go for that Milter power position in particular, to go for that spot, and the playing path was not very good for that because it was from what, Severny down to like kind of the southwest side of the map. But they also in the past had a secondary drop that was the complete west coast of Erangel towards where MADBULLS typically play, and it was where the circle was there actually. And they went to go for Stolber instead and lost 2 players instantly. I would like to see them maybe revert to that secondary drop on the west coast because it's so good. And as you said during that game, there's a few god compounds you can have access to there, which I think would have been fantastic for Eastern Stars to go for. So hopefully they can revert back to that because I really enjoyed that old split of Eastern Stars.
Yeah, it was, I think it was 4 Romanian men that were able to take them out quite swiftly up on top of that drop that they went for towards Stolber. So trades here and there, unfortunate for them. It really kind of sucks for me because I was like, I want to see them continue to be consistent, considering what they brought in from the starting half of this phase, but not able to get the ball rolling just then. But Miramar is up next, Max, and I feel like Eastern Stars is able to do well there.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance they'll try and perform. But you know what, with that said, Jason's not here, so that means I am the host this time around, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to throw it to a real quick video to talk about the role of IGL.
The IGL, or in-game leader, is the captain on the battlefield and the one who calls the shots. It's the IGL's task to come up with decisive strategies and solutions in real time, and the rest of the team is supposed to execute those to perfection. This role is not for everyone, because you need to deal with a lot of pressure, and you can't make any mistakes. It's not necessary that the IGL has to play as a support during fights. They might carry impeccable firepower and still be aware enough to make decisions for the whole team while engaged in a fight. This is why it's mandatory to have a superior game sense and be able to detect threats that can't be seen. So, the task of figuring out rotation paths according to the zone shifts naturally falls to them. Leading is a dynamic task, and there's no way to tell what makes a perfect IGL. While having a flexible approach might seem like a suitable option, IGLs must know their team's strengths and arrange their playstyle accordingly. Most IGLs prefer a democratic approach, where every situation is discussed among all the members as the IGL comes up with a final decision. However, this can also backfire in chaotic situations when your teammates are being impulsive. So having a unilateral approach is not a bad choice either. Remember, it's not always the IGL's fault that a member dies. It's a battle royale, and your survival is solely in your hands. The captain's job is to make sure that the team stays in the match no matter what, even if it costs the elimination of a member or two. Difficult times call for difficult measures, and having a disciplined chain of command is often the deciding factor between the winning and losing team.
Hey, look, I disagree. I think it's always the IGL's fault. If I die, at least. You know, Jason's the IGL, so if it happens, I would say it's his fault.
Wait, you would really say Jason's our IGL?
I just wanted to blame Jason for something. He's not here to defend himself.
All right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I had to throw some shade.
I'm not liking the idea of Jason dictating which rotations we go on. I'm not about that. That sounds rough.
Last time he was IGL,
Anyway.
he said, Max, you stay in the blue. I was like, okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. But look, we're going to be looking at the map performances here for Miramar for some of these teams. And you were talking about Eastern Stars, if they can perform on this one. It is one of their top maps when it comes to their elimination average here. 6.25 throughout all of those Miramar. So far, they've played 4, if I'm not mistaken. So Eastern Stars definitely shown some consistency on this map already.
Yeah, definitely so. And as you're seeing with Nexus having that bump up, I think that is kind of slightly skewed thanks to the fact that they got a huge win off the back of Miramar at the very end of our last day of play in our first 3 days of the phase, with the win as well as 16 eliminations, right? So that definitely gave them a huge leg up compared to some of the other competition here. But I do like what they were doing with that win. They were holding down the fort well, that they were kind of isolated in, and then anybody kind of coming along for a rival was quickly disposed of. So we'll see if Nexus can do that. But I mean, my eyes are also on Death Machine as well, because I think that they can kind of do similar things and can convert in similar ways.
Yeah, and we saw Unicorns of Love also having a really good average when it comes to their eliminations over on Miramar. Unicorns of Love still not on the level I think a lot of us expected, right? I think though, especially with adding Crypto to the roster, I think we expected them to see them towards the top 5 position. They started off the day in 9th, so we'll have to see if they could potentially make it back up then this game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I8 is still in Pakistan also first, so apparently they didn't even really need Crypto, even though Crypto's a great signing or a great loan anyway. But never mind. It is time now to head over to the commentary team here to bring us the second match of the day. They're the top passers. It's John and Blank.
Oh, thanks very much for the pass. It's time to hit those 4Ks on this game, Blank. See if you can get those squad wipes. You look really pleased about that.
Not happy about that one, honestly. Yeah. Well, to be fair, look, sometimes I get 900 damage in my games, other times I get 4,000 damage in my games. It's just the way these things go. But unfortunately for me, exactly. Unfortunately for me, I do have my IGL in Kalaris, so sometimes that can go quite wrong for me because he's just off on the other side of Erangel, and I'm forced to just slingshot over towards him. Looking at this though, we are heading over to Miramar instead, so hopefully this time we have a bit more of a chilled out match here, and none of these hot drops nice and early on, John, because we are starting to see those time and time again. Again, Circle, not quite on our screens just yet, but the playing path down from La Cobreria over towards the south side of the map there, right in between Los Leones and Chumacera. So this is a really good circle for most teams. You can get exactly where you want. Typically, you'd much prefer this vertical playing path as opposed to a horizontal one, just because you're able to get out to where you need to be much easier, especially if you want to play on that north side or the south side of the map.
Most eliminations there. MUERTE still topping the tables for QODEX. QODEX weren't playing in that first game, right? So this is their chance to recoup some of those points, some of that slip that they would have had after that first game. Eastern Stars in that second spot. Similar story for Death Machine coming into this game, right? They're both going to be looking to accrue as much as they can, regain on those players ahead of them. MADBULLS, they're set right at the top, but can they hold on to that spot at the moment? Between them and Eastern Stars, it's a 38-point difference at this stage, just past the halfway mark.
It's a lot of points there. So for Eastern Stars, starting off the game pretty poorly with that slightly awkward drop towards Stalber that Max was talking about, saying that, you know, this is a very awkward drop, much rather than drop over towards that western side, take a secondary drop for themselves, rather than trying to force the mill to drop. I think that's much smarter here. For MADBULLS, you know, if you're looking at your screen right now, these results are slightly wrong. We have played 30 matches for a couple of those guys. So they're not 169, they're 184 currently. Eastern Stars behind them at 146. So yeah, please ignore everything on the top side of the screen just for this game.
For the time being. Take Aim Gaming, again, in a hot drop situation against TJB this time around over near Hacienda. We've seen TJB fight win for this spot before, but if you step out the side of the tractor there, Lynn, it's not going to go your way. Tingsker with the M249, but a nice little sneaky bit of gameplay there. Tingsker spots the player around the corner, but the AKM just too much to handle. Swap out to the Scar, and it's a second. Excellent spray downs coming through from Happy.
TJB, honestly, this is a team that I feel just did not fare very well right at the beginning of games, especially if they get hot dropped on. They're so split a lot of times, and they're focused on trying to get much more control across the map. GK First, I think, is the only one who's capable of doing anything in this kind of situation, but already laid low. At least picks up 1 point for the team. Happy days, at least. GK First, once again, coming in clutch, so they'll go for that 0-point game.
Death Machine's first game this week. And we're there, low already inside the buildings. 2 eliminations already coming through. And sprays towards the door. They know exactly where in the building he is, and that will be the end of it. Modi picks that one up. Pushes on for more. 3 eliminations and only 1 player standing for ARB and Picardo.
Oh my, it's all over the place, John. I can't catch a break at the moment. Ruthless Esports over towards Pioneer. Already finding 1. And this is interesting considering this was the fight between, you know, Big and Pioneer. Big this time pieced out towards that western side. Instead, it's Ruthless Esports coming up against the Pioneer team. 55 players at 3-minute mark, John. What is happening?
It's getting pretty hot. You were talking about maybe a little bit less of those hot drops, but Blank, I think you might be wrong on that count. Jamaz around the side, UMP, but it's not going to be enough. Tommy gun from Death Machine to shut it all down. ARB losing out on Picardo and the rest of this game.
Yeah, Death Machine has been getting a lot done recently over towards Picardo, just purely against ARB. They've been getting the better of them, and I think for ARB, it might even be time to consider dropping elsewhere, or at least try and drop further away from Death Machine at the moment, just purely with how well Death Machine are kind of controlling these angles a lot of times. It is awkward because it is going backwards and forwards here, and neither team is willing to break away from Picardo, but this gives a good opportunity for Death Machine, who have had their best stats being placed here on Miramar, albeit they've had a couple of games with fairly decent circle look, but that's to be expected when you drop in Picardo, right? You have the center of the map, you can pick a very strong position towards the middle, and then more often than not, you know, you're hoping if the circle's kind to you and you get a lot of central shifts and not too many hard shifts, you are going to get that center circle.
That's what you're looking for. seems like things have taken a small breather. It's the teams that really hot dropped have all now departed. 2 teams down this early. I mean, you were talking about 55 players now down to 54. 14 teams now in the first 5 minutes. 4 eliminations for Take Aim Gaming, 4 eliminations for Death Machine. And the one sneaky one coming through from Ruthless Esports. TJB picking up that one as well, which brings us to that total. Goodness me. Okay, right. Looking at teams that are already central, Pioneer right in the middle.
Again, only 3 players, though, with their little skirmish with Ruthless Esports. Ruthless Esports, you can see them along the way. Last game, losing a couple of players towards those latter parts of the circle. I don't think that's too much of a lot of these teams' faults, honestly. With the circle that we had in Erangel, very difficult to play around, right? And now Ruthless Esports, who now control a lot of this central position. Back when they were Giants, you know, Miramar was a map where they tended to do fairly well. Erangel was typically that map where it was only until later on, you know, towards the finals and the later parts of Erangel, that they later parts of that tournament in spring, where they were starting to do some really good work. And when they were UDR killers, sorry, they've gone through many different iterations, so I had to go through all of them. Miramar was kind of the stomping ground. They had some very, very decent off angles and crossfires they liked to take on the roads, and they were aggressive with it, which is what you like to see.
Shockwave coming off the back of their chicken dinner. Have some high ground against QODEX's position downhill. That is Vito that it was scoping in on there. Still, a lot of cover in this compound from up on high. Should be safe for now. And the rest of QODEX are moving in to back up the position.
Yeah, he's right on the front side of it now too, which is, I think, is around about 220 meters, 230. So Trazen can see him. We had that hard cap at 300 meters, being able to see enemy players unless they're rotating in vehicles. So at the moment, Trazen can spot him out. It will be a difficult hit if he's not running a DMR and something like an M4. That spray is more orientated to, you know, grabbing a vehicle that's traveling long range at 300 meters as opposed to a player. I think, you know, I've done some decent sprays on the M4. These players are way, way better than me, but even I think, you know, 240, 250, that's just a little bit out of range for a clean, consistent spray, especially like you were saying with a compound like that, which has very decent cover.
Yeah, the time to kill on that range will be a little bit too high to not allow a QODEX to get back to cover, right? So probably going to leave that one well alone, just get away with that information and maybe suppress the position, right? I mean, even if you're not going for the kill, you can go for that suppression, but that's the question. Do you want to give away that position in order to slow down their egress, given that you're both in that center circle already?
Next circle yet to hit at the moment, John. You know, I think the only teams that are really outside at the moment are VIRTUS.PRO, as well as Unicorns of Love and Take Aim Gaming. Unicorns of Love coming dangerously close to Take Aim Gaming at the moment, who did lose a player early on, remember, to GK first with the Mini 14. You wonder if Unicorns of Love will just go for a hard block out. I think Unicorns of Love are really starting to pick up pace towards the end of the day yesterday. Their cadence was really improving. I think they've made a few little mistakes here and there, especially on that final Erangel where they weren't able to quite take down TJB, but they're making the right decisions now, John. And I think, you know, we can be a lot more confident in them. It is nice to see, though, again, big applause to Unicorns of Love, big love to Unicorns of Love, considering we've kept a very similar roster this time. And instead of, you know, trying to completely rechange the game, they've just added some very, very useful players that mix, like Crypto on loan, who is extremely good fragger, as well as Gonzo used to be over on, I believe that was Kanina Power as an IGL. So they're really just, you know, rebolstering the roster.
True, although it hasn't been spectacular from the Unicorns of Love. They are still in the top 12 as of right now. And maybe with more still to do, more still to prove, hopefully seeing that coming on the eastern side. They'll be close to Take Aim Gaming for the foreseeable future, and they'll be moving in behind the team on our screen right now, XTEAM, who, quite frankly, have not had the best of starts to this phase.
No, I think XTEAM has been really lacking in terms of points. I think the difficulty of XTEAM is, you know, everyone gave them so much praise after I think they hit the highest scoring game in the entirety of PMPL Western Europe history. And then just fell off massively after that. And I think the way we talked about them was like, oh yeah, maybe they'll hit those heights again. Maybe they'll get back to that performance. But you know, just looking realistically, John, I don't think this team is that amazing. I think Beg for Mercy is probably the only guy on that team that I have too much faith in. But I think even for him, there seems to be a little bit of burnout after that last PMPL Western Europe, where it was practically all on his shoulders to get his team throughout a lot of those games.
XTEAM rocking up onto Vito. First spray is good. Looks for more as well. Needs to get some healing done. A nice little hot swap on the buildings. Pulls back to the rest of the team, but not quite out the window there. And Beg for Mercy might get the flush. No! There's a lot of damage poured on in towards Vito, though, and you don't imagine he's going to get back up anytime soon, unless they can drop that smoke. But on the forefront, MUERTE suffering heavily. Nades over the top, and a second one to put him down on bended knee. Andy and Nightmare for XTEAM. Coming up against, at the moment, only one for QODEX. Trying to post some nades through these windows.
Yeah, it's a good play from Nightmare. Moves back after hearing the pin from the grenade. Folly realistically just wants to provide himself a little bit of room before moving up. And Nightmare's back up to full HP there. PNL's taking some time to get back into the fight, and all the while, MUERTE is bleeding out now. So they have to control this side of the compound where MUERTE is currently down on the ridge side. Folly moves back in the UAs, and it looks like they're just completely piecing out of this.
That knock over onto Vito on QODEX, I feel like was the really, really pivotal moment of that fight. If QODEX gets through that window, that fight goes completely differently. But XTEAM managed to push on through, managed to take that initiative, get on in, and this is good. This is a change that we've seen.
Again, a lot of that comes off the back of Beg for Mercy with the fantastic knock, and then decent nades coming over, and then some follow-ups through from Nightmare. Again, you know, yesterday was, well, not yesterday, but day 3 was much better for XTEAM. And by much better, I mean by only a few points, but it did feel like they were less dead in the water on that day. And it looks like they're coming into day 4 feeling a little bit more refreshed in phase 1. Again, it's not going to be a case where they'll end up on day 6 with a huge count of points, but they can at least try and get themselves that top 12 and put them instead for trying to earn some points coming into the finals, so they're not so far behind that it looks like a pipe dream trying to get into like that top 5.
Unicorns of Love taking a couple of shots from TKN Gaming, but they have cover, they have angle, and they're in the circle comfortably on the west end of Picardo. Doing well for now.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these teams are going to be having a bad time going forward. I think for MUERTE, they were extremely happy about 30 seconds ago and now extremely unhappy. Just because we had that hard western shift and then immediately we shift back over towards the eastern side. So for teams like Unicorns of Love, who have been trying to make their way down from Hacienda down towards Picardo, you know, they're really happy taking up these warehouses and don't have to move too much. Death Machine, who putting their way outside of Picardo, again, it's that central position I was talking about earlier. It really does benefit them in terms of getting that circle. So less circle look, but more just putting themselves in the right place at the right time. QODEX sees down towards Ruthless, but what can they really do with these two players? It's kind of a survival game from here on out.
Let's see how far they can get going. That chase for MADBULLS at the top of the tables for QODEX. Bit too far for this game. MUERTE on the west, still yet to leave Monte Nuevo. With the high ground somewhat occupied, might be difficult to push on in. Na'Vi as well to the north side of Monte Nuevo after having rotated down that way. Just stimming up, heavily looted there. You see Tixie on the 333s. Looking pretty healthy.
Yeah, curious using the barrel as well. I think that, you know, Na'Vi is probably one of the teams where I've seen the most variation in terms of weapons usage, from DMRs to the barrel itself, which hits extremely hard, that M762. You know, with the M4, you're looking at, I think it's 4 to 3 bullets, where, you know, the M762 can do it in 3 with 1 neck shot. So I think that when you see that, it's dangerous. Much harder to control than the M4, but if you can hit your shots and get the spray transfers and reset on that spray, it can be extremely deadly in close range, which is nice to see that. That's why Tixi uses the DMRs as well, because he has that close range unit with the M762, but then also has the, oh god, he's doing M762 Scar. Okay, this is very interesting.
All right, fair enough. Still, suppression on the ridgeline over towards Shockwave, going quite well right now. All of Na'Vi managed to get together, and they get the circle up to the north as well, which means that they have a really solid position. I feel like Na'Vi have been caught in rotations a couple of times, more than they would potentially like. So they've managed to get all 4 in and heading the game on rotation. XTEAM up the hill. They took on QODEX. Can they take on Na'Vi?
I think, you know, it's nice that we moved over to Na'Vi because I did want to talk about them before I got really stuck into the M762 debate there. But I did really want to talk about them because it does feel like a bit of a fresh mental reset coming into the second half of phase 1 here. Much better rotations, much smarter splits that are coming through, not losing people out in the blue nice and early. And I think that, you know, they did have some troubles in that first half of phase 1, but despite all that, you know, they've come back kicking here. And I think it's hard to come back from mental loss like that in the first half when you're playing day to day. But you've had a whole week to, you know, really figure out what's been going on, what the players in the lobby are dropping in. But Unicorns will have coming up against Death Machine. NASA's already down the floor. There's nades in front of them, making it very difficult to head over towards Happy.
Jason backing up Na'Vi as well with the prediction. Only one player from Big left, and PIONER see them off. Shots still ringing out though. Damage still coming in from one way or another. I think that's NEXUS who have oversight on this fight. This is not ideal for PIONER, but they will pick up those points. They'll be happy about it. This is on the south side of this next circle. They're just outside in this gas station, so they will have to move northwards towards Ruthless Esports, towards QODEX. NEXUS as well are going to have to make this move.
It's going to be a little bit rough for a lot of these guys. Eastern Stars, though, I think been quite quiet over on the east towards Power Grid, and with a lot of this very hilly terrain towards the center of the map, you know, Eastern Stars can stay quietly situated on that eastern side. They will have to get a little bit loud soon, though, with Unicorns of Love rocking right up on top of Athis. But has he been spotted? That's the question.
Unicorns of Love swinging around. Will spot Athis. There he goes. In the buggy already, though, and might be able to get back to safety if these bullets don't land, but that's a lot of damage already. Will isolate the angles there and reduce the number of Unicorns that can spot out this position. Athis back to safety, even up to take this swing out from Rollkiss.
Honestly, really good trigger discipline from Icy there. You know, with that kind of send from Athis, he's going over open ground. There's only one reason why he'd do anything so, you know, deliberate as that, is that he's got teammates waiting in the wing. So Icy only goes for a couple of sprays before backing off again. NEXUS, though, in a rough spot with VIRTUS.PRO right on their tail.
And they've got Death Machine and Take Aim Gaming both looking to push in, potentially behind on this position if they get diverted by Ruthless. Eastern Stars and Unicorns both shunt on through. A really heads-up rotation from Athis. Actually just shuts out all of this northwards progression that Unicorns were looking for. Now they have to go down south, play to the south of the Eastern Stars. Keme's looking to come in for the backup here onto the position of the Unicorns, and they might be forced towards NEXUS.
I think Rourke is just a little bit slow on that rotate, but with this circle that heads fairly central, but a little bit up towards that northwest side, Na'Vi would love to, you know, get the battering ram out and just send straight through XTEAM to find a very, very high ground position within the circle where they can start to dominate. But again, we're still on board with Unicorns of Love. Gonzo has a nade he's not able to throw, and there's no support.
Epahala spray down the hill, now looking for the nades. Icy wants to put the HE uphill, but just falls a little bit to the side. Crypto now down. Icy stands up for the Unicorns, trying to get these knocks onto Kampahala, which he will be able to do, but there's too many men on the hillside, and Eastern Stars sweep them out.
It's 4 eliminations. It's well done. From the awkward beginning with Athis there, he's able to send across with the support from Bazzi. And I think that, you know, for Eastern Stars, if anything we learned from them over the first half of Phase 1 is that as a team, this is probably one of our most collected units within the lobby at the moment, which is very odd for me to see considering last season they were so disconnected. Nice sprays from VIRTUS.PRO, immediately takes down 2 of the players there from Death Machine, and NEXUS tried to make a getaway in the meantime, and they do it in the party bus.
Well, they're going to be celebrating that one. Getting out with 2. On the north side as well, Na'Vi and XTEAM are clashing. The south melee continues. As everybody on their south edge does need to move further north. Eastern Stars sweeping out that eastern side might have a good shout into the next few. Death Machine eliminated, that was on the south side. Ruthless Esports now behind the curve on progression.
Yes, this is a super awkward spot to play in this circle. You don't have a lot of room to play around with. Chulika going head-to-head with Ruthless Esports. Ulysses gets taken down on the backside, though, and now Nade comes over the top into the smoke. That's a Molotov. Try and prevent any reses coming through. Chulika is hit with a nade of his own, and it's just playing along these corridors. It's just awkward.
Na'Vi did manage to get back up to 4, as did XTEAM on the northern side as these nades traded out. Chulika, that's a lot of damage. You do not want to be there for much longer. That's another nade. Chulika sneaks back behind the cover, doesn't get knocked. Heal does go through, but more ordnance pouring on in. Ruthless Esports trapped in the foothills in the meantime. VIRTUS.PRO have the outside track here, but can they get away from this blue zone? The spray downs are good, sure, but they need to put progression into the books. They need to move out north, and that circle is brutal for them.
Straight down towards MUERTE, who are currently on top side at the moment. It's going to be very hard to dethrone them. Again, I think VIRTUS.PRO play that out quite well, but I'm going to wait just a little bit because I think there's so much action going on at the moment. But it's all down to Chulika there. Yes, he plays a dangerous game, holding on for the nades coming through from Ruthless Esports, but he has to hold them there. And by sending the nades in, it prevents them from moving forward. And Old Boy, like you said, holds that outside track, which works out really good for them. Na'Vi, though, get put to bed on the north side by XTEAM.
And a third party from SHOCKWAVE came into that as well, coming in from that western edge. And now XTEAM are under pressure, getting eliminated as well. SHOCKWAVE sweep up 2 teams on the northern side. All 4 of them are alive, and off the back of a win, their confidence is going to be at all-time high.
This is very, very different plays coming through here. The guys on SHOCKWAVE. Circle does envelop PNL, but Yankee immediately has to move. 2 first aid kits, but Athis and Eastern Stars, they've got oversight. Fortunately for them, there's also another team looking their way. Every time Athis drops up, it's MUERTE sending shots across, an M24 as well. Supersonic is going to be ringing out across the field, so you don't want to stand up for too long lest you lose your head.
5 teams now remain. 15 players, Redox. Standing tall, Athis. Not so lucky. Kappa also knocked. VIRTUS.PRO are just finding these angles. Absolutely on the swivel. Redox definitely spotted there. Chulika puts the nade in, but now the last player from NEXUS under pressure. Yankee swings on up. They know that that ridgeline is suppressed by those knocks, but SHOCKWAVE are there as well. Keme spotted out in this rotation, takes a lot of damage, and SHOCKWAVE are being put back by MUERTE as well.
That should not have happened, but I think MUERTE providing cover allows VIRTUS.PRO with some extremely good mechanical play. Let me add that in very quickly. Who are stepping up and taking shots so accurately over the ridge there and getting some headshots onto Eastern Stars. You know, with that placed in, at that point in time, Eastern Stars finds it very difficult to go for any kind of reses to speak of. Now, VIRTUS.PRO probably the most horrific situation, but 10 eliminations this game. It's good stuff.
We saw a pretty horrific situation go well for the team on the back foot last time around, and it was both VIRTUS.PRO and SHOCKWAVE. So for the 2nd game in a row, they reached the top 3. The higher elimination count this time to the Polar Bears. MUERTE have the numbers advantage, but the circle shifts away from them just a little bit. Ingush playing a little bit slower. VIRTUS.PRO still healthy, but they have to swing out into open ground.
Smokes are down, Molotovs are sent across. This is smart play from both teams to disengage, seeing that next circle. You can imagine that the calls have come in to back off and drop smokes in to deny sightlines to MUERTE, considering they have to move off. It's extremely good ridgeline they currently hold. English, though, who's been a major star for MUERTE, do take down one of the players from SHOCKWAVE. I think that's an instant flush as well. They want to limit the amount of members that they're going against in the remainder of this circle.
Ooh, that was a brutal nade. All of VP got hit by that one. They can get tagged a little bit further. SHOCKWAVE getting tagged on the hillside. Trazen down as well. Just Hakoni now for SHOCKWAVE. And VIRTUS.PRO still up at 3, but they need to get some healing done.
It feels just a little bit too aggressive there from SHOCKWAVE, considering they really didn't have to move at all. Fleek looking for a little bit more. Hakoni does spot him moving across, but look at the bullets flying over towards Hakoni's way. He can't step up for a single second. This is really good control from MUERTE. But now, VIRTUS.PRO, they're pushing.
Aggressive, 2 down, 3 down. Oh, sorry, just Old Boy remains. I thought he was down, but no, not out just yet. VIRTUS.PRO finally do get eliminated, though. That Nook is not cranny enough for MUERTE to not spot him. And Old Boy goes down, so just Hakoni for SHOCKWAVE against 4 from MUERTE. Over the hillsides, they know where he is. Striker repositions up to the high ground, trying to take the 1v1s, but he's not going to make it work. SHOCKWAVE down. MUERTE take Miramar.
Really impatient play there from SHOCKWAVE, and I think VIRTUS.PRO didn't expect it either. They were basically peeking over the top to try and get as many bullets down range towards MUERTE to prevent them from pushing out, right, John? And I think for SHOCKWAVE, it's just a case of as soon as you see that circle, you don't really have to move too much anymore. You can just hide behind the trees, let MUERTE have to come out from that little ridge line, the little rock they were playing behind, possibly throw some nades down that way. But again, I will say one thing, is MUERTE's shots that game were incredibly accurate. They were just sending them down range and finding the bullseye time and time again. And for SHOCKWAVE, every time they stood up, it wasn't only the bullseye they were finding, it was the speed at which they were sending them in. You know, they were getting the 180 on the dartboard in under 1 second there. So it was very, very well played from MUERTE.
But this is a different SHOCKWAVE that we're seeing in general. I mean, they're surviving late game. They've won that first one out. They're doing very, very well, and they're sending themselves way up those leaderboards, right? This is excellent news. This is really, really good stuff, and it's the sort of changes that we wanted to see week to week.
Yeah, 100%. I think for VIRTUS.PRO as well, before we send this one back over the desk, they're continuing to maintain that good pace. But the guys who are speedy on that analysis are also the guys over on the desk who we'll be sending it over to right now.
Okay, well, gentlemen, yeah, that's right. It's James, it's me, Jason Kaplan, the host.
He's back.
I'm back. Yeah, no, it was great to see MUERTE get the win, but we do have, obviously, to talk about the elephant in the room. The zones were definitely favorable towards them.
Yes. I don't like breaking down games like that, but they had the circle. No one was really willing to contest because they just couldn't. And from the very start of the game, they jump in Monte Nuevo. They're just solo on the western side. There's not much you can do. Some teams had some good fights. They're trying to climb their way up the hilltop. VIRTUS.PRO in particular had a very, very good amount of fights they were taking, but then the circle was just too in favor of MUERTE. So the win does come their way. 7 eliminations, no, still good conversion rate, but it's because not many teams were around them. They couldn't get those big, 15 elimination games. Here was just, a small win for the side of MUERTE.
Yeah, and Claris, I think actually VIRTUS.PRO is probably one of the more interesting talking points here because they did have to play around from the southern side of those zones and obviously rotate up towards the east like Eastern Stars did. But for them to get, a third place plus 10 eliminations, I think for me, that's more impressive than MUERTE getting the win.
Yeah, they had to walk through fire in this game, I think is fair to say. When you look at how you have a lot of teams collapsing onto the spot that they already initially had along that kind of ridge line at the bottom of it, and then had to fight them, and then had to fight whilst they're moving up it as well, and then take out NEXUS as they go up towards the top of that. So yeah, a lot of fighting, a lot of eliminations had to go their way, or any team's way, to try and make it through that channel of into the circle later on. So I don't know. I feel like VIRTUS.PRO keeps kind of impressing and impressing, even when they're not getting themselves the victories. They're finding themselves in hot situations that they're winning out, and that's exciting to see.
The thing is VIRTUS.PRO looking so aggressive now. That's what we keep bringing up when we're talking about the CIS teams, is that when they have a fight and they can take it, they will be normally come out on top a lot of the time. And you can even see here, for example, a fight early game between TJB and Take Aim Gaming, where TJB I'm going to have to say this again, unfortunately, but I still don't see that synergy. They just feel like 4 players in the same team. They don't feel like a team just yet. And I think that that's why we're seeing a lot of teams just capitalizing on the hot drop and just getting those 4 easy eliminations early games. So still need to see TJB get up there. But other than that, Eastern Stars, we both predicted them Kularis in this game, and they had a really good entry point to the East, but man, VIRTUS.PRO was still there, and they really popped off on the end.
Yeah, I feel like their entry point was taken a little slowly by them, where I think maybe it could have been taken a bit faster, and then maybe from there on out you can try and make something happen. But it was the circle shifting away from them towards the MUERTE compared to, you know, centering up and maybe giving them something to play with wasn't quite there for them. So a bit rough for them, but at least they were able to have a commanding presence up there for a while on the East side. I think that's kind of what we were leaning towards, to see if they were actually going to be able to make something happen from that. Just didn't happen.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that we might be obviously saying that MUERTE, they got the zone so many times, it was kind of an easy win for them. But it's still important to note, at least, that when you do, or when you are gifted a zone like that and you have to get gifted the position that you have, that you better make sure you win that game. And yeah, they didn't get a ton of eliminations, but they locked it down. That's a great sign for them. Obviously, things are to get more difficult, though, if VIRTUS.PRO obviously had a little bit easier time transitioning. But great to see, though, out of MUERTE to close things down. And we should focus on their players really quickly, because we haven't really had the opportunity to so far. But I'm curious about their player stats across the board and see who the big standout players were. And Flyke, 760 damage, 3 eliminations again, considering the position they had. Not too bad.
Yeah, Flyke and Striker this game in particular really showing up. And as you said, even though they got the circle given to them a few times in a row, it is still not a given task to get that win, right? You still need to try and zone teams away. And that's what they were doing. They were doing it versus Shockwave. They were doing it with their nades and mollies up against VIRTUS.PRO. Also, they are creating that space to make sure they keep 100% ownership of the circle. Heikoni did get through for Shockwave in the circle, but regardless, it's just one player. Is not going to be a major issue for you. But yeah, good from Flyke and Striker to get himself on top. Do you say Flyke or Flique? I want to say Flique, I don't know why, but sounds good. Yeah, sounds good to me. Maybe it's just my French. Yeah, I think that's my French coming through. Like, I really want to say Flique, but it sounds right.
It's just weird.
Yeah, and then, well, how would you say the last player's name?
Dadaev. Oh, yes. It's probably right. I think that's how you want it to be said.
I should leave that to the jingle master, to be honest. I shouldn't try to do any of that. Okay, well, we're talking about MUERTE. We talked about VIRTUS.PRO a ton. Again, I want to hop actually into VIRTUS.PRO's player stats to see who is standing out for them, because we obviously talk about the big names within the team. And it's actually going to not be Old Boy leading towards the top, which is surprising. But then also it's surprising they got 10 eliminations with basically not having Mur playing in that game.
I'm stoked that we're seeing someone else than Old Boy. No, Old Boy, love you. You're doing great so far. You were one of the top players throughout the first 3 days. But seeing Tulikasi and Yankee with a Brim this time around actually popping off. Really stoked to see 2 other players play next alongside to Old Boy in particular. So that is great. I think Mir is the player that we haven't seen too much from the team. But if we can see every single one of these players step up, which is what we've been seeing recently when it comes to these fights, I'm telling you, they could make in the championships and they could qualify to PMGC that way. Currently, this is the top team that would put on my radar that can compete with the Turkish teams in the championship to go qualify that way in the PMGC.
And these numbers ending up the way they are, these are rough fights to constantly be taken on Miramar. I would argue some of the most rough locations to be taking fights on. You're constantly on edge, constantly like, okay, who's over the next rock? Is there a guy just being a snake across the next rock? Because you have to be absolutely quick on the trigger to be able to take these fights importantly. So yeah, very well played by them, considering, yes, you don't get the victory, but being able to just get up on the high ground alone was a feat in itself.
Okay, well, 2 minutes and 50 seconds left to go here. Let's see overalls really quickly before we head into our third match of the day, which will be our only Sanhok. We do have MADBULLS still in first place. Eastern Stars there in second, but we haven't seen MADBULLS really... I was going to say not really run away with it, but they were out the last match because of the groups, and then the first match they did relatively well. But we're seeing VIRTUS.PRO, though, more importantly, third place.
Yeah, they started off in 6th at the start. They're already in 3rd, and they're only 2 points behind the Eastern Stars. There's a chance they could also compete with first place, because MADBULLS has been a little bit topsy-turvy throughout the day-to-day. So VIRTUS.PRO could be currently first place, which, unfortunately for the original Western European teams, that means that the top 2 teams would be CIS teams. And I think it's getting a little bit more close in line with our expectations that CIS is going to dominate. It took a bit longer to get there, but I think we're slowly but surely getting to the point where CIS teams are going to be a lot towards the top.
Yeah, but I think we expected Na'Vi to be one of those top 2 teams, not MADBULLS and VIRTUS.PRO, to be honest, because we know the track record of Na'Vi. They've yet to get a win here so far, one of the few teams, unfortunately, for them. But Na'Vi, I mean, 39 eliminations, and I know we keep hammering on them, but because we expect them to be such a big team in this region and technically the world, they have still been extremely quiet.
Yeah, they need to be louder. I don't know how else to describe it. As you say, like, with what they've done so far. Yeah.
XTEAM's too good.
Louder, guys.
I mean, to be fair, right? Na'Vi we expect a lot out of, but also big. I am expecting a ton out of big, and Mihi and co have been definitely struggling. I know, I think he made a post around like the first couple of days, and hopefully they worked past those issues they were having. But I wanted to see more out of them. I want to see them step up here because big for me was one of those original contenders I was looking at to represent Western Europe in the EU regionals. But gentlemen, it is time to head into our third match today. It is on Sanhok, so let's throw it back over to John Allen and Blake.
Don't know why James looks so terrified there on the end. Calaris, you know, he's going to be all right. He's going to be all right. Don't worry. It's only Sanhok. Barn can't hurt you.
Ban can hurt you, and it's coming, so you better be terrified. That thing walks around the map. You know, you've seen the wooden structure there, but what you don't know is it's actually some form of Autobot, and it actually assembles and then walks across the map, and that's the new game mode that's incoming, and you have to fight it as a full 99 squad. But that's not coming for a little while yet, so you just have to wait and see. I promise. I'm getting in touch with the developers right now. But yeah, we're heading over towards Sanhok, which is a bit more of a crazy map here. There's a lot of different rotations that can happen, but so far from Miramar and Erangel being so incredibly hot, John, I'm a little bit worried about Sanhok coming into this one because there's going to be a huge amount of teams hot dropping. There's going to be fights popping off all over the place. Maybe not in the first couple of minutes, but who knows? Bootcamp Paradise Resort, the MADBULLS, maybe even going for this one. I do wonder if the VIRTUS.PRO are playing this one. I think they are. But yeah, so far, going from 6th to 3rd, just behind Eastern Stars. Eastern Stars have really not been able to, you know, get some movement happening this time. They've been just bogged down in the sludge jump.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Need to get those bog waders on. Make sure it doesn't
That's right.
get into the traps, because that just gets you soggy socks. And that is no fun for anyone, Blank.
I hate soggy socks. That's why I just don't wear socks. I just wear wellies, nothing else.
That's fair. That's fair. To be fair, anything soggy.
Obviously, other clothes.
Anything soggy, just kind of don't want it, you know?
No, I hate it. Oh boy, there, most eliminations, 25. Money Ken's really not being able to, you know, pump up those numbers anymore over the past couple of days. But it is still Old Boy who's just been ranking his way up, and so far, you know, he's been trapped away in his little brick wall room, and he's been practicing on those brick walls, punching away, boxing away, and now he's been released. He's ready to go out of these other teams in Western Europe. You see MADBULLS at the top there, 184 points. They will be playing this match, dropping over towards Paradise Resort as usual. And VIRTUS.PRO heading all the way over towards Camp Bravo and Mong Nai to get looted up nice and early. So very close over towards the MADBULLS. So there could be a little bit of a scrap going on there, but we'll have to see if that does come into effect. This time around, though, no other teams in towards Boot Camp. So no Pioneer, and I believe Death Machine have decided not to drop on those northern warehouses. The Arabian Champions actually did try and hold that one out with Omar over towards that north side as well, just in case the Death Machines did drop in that location.
Not only that, only QODEX in Painan and TJB, they've gone out to the west of Barn, so a little bit more central than we're used to seeing them. I mean, they have changed that previously. That is an adjustment that they made last week, but it's good to see that one sticking. Na'Vi drop fairly aggressively, I would say, towards Big on that northwestern island, right? This is really quite into Big's territory near Camp Alpha. Both of them do drop on this island, sure, but can be risky. And Na'Vi actually with one of their players close to 3 of the Big players.
Yeah, there's been too many times so far where Na'Vi's dropped, like, just scattered across the mountain and then slowly been picked up by other teams. Fortunately, Kitsune will be taken down. The first elimination going Beast's way. So again, not a strong start for Na'Vi, and they open things up around on that northwest island for themselves. Big this time dropping down towards that southwest side as per usual. And by usual, I mean last season usual. So far, it's been a little bit difficult for them, especially with Eastern Stars up towards Hattin. This time around, their Game Lord takes a little bit more space on that side of the map with Eastern Stars not playing. So there's a lot of different dynamics happening over here on the Northwest Island. And unfortunately, Na'Vi have fallen prey to them the most times, in my opinion.
Gotta be adjustments made if you want to be taking these ones down. Nobody currently on the central hills on that northwestern island. Nobody on those compounds to the east side of it. It seems like these river crossings kind of uncharacteristically unoccupied right now for a Sanhok with this sort of a circle. Mihi is going to be the target for vengeance here for Meku, and will get flushed on out. Big. Two of their players up into the buggy and up in arms. Meku might have a little bit more to chew here. Certainly plenty of gristle as Big roll on up. Two players around the tree. First knock almost immediately brings things into perspective, and there's an off angle as well coming through from Matic. Beautiful hold. I think Meku got both of those excellently done, and a sliver of HP to mean Swave is the last alive.
Yeah, very, very smart decision there, especially playing with the AKM too. Recently buffed up, but even with the AKM, you know, you don't need many attachments to make this gun effective. It has a red dot sight on it. Perhaps even a compensator, I'm not sure there, but that's really all you need, and then it's good to go. It does have a slow fire rate, but if you hit that initial headshot, which I believe Meku did in that situation, it's just another body shot there, close range, without the helmets or the vests available to you this early in the game, and you're going down. So it's really important that Meku did pick up that first one, and then with the crossfire available, they're able to finish off the fight quickly. So that is very smart from Na'Vi to be able to pick that up, and I think Big were kind of coerced into an awkward situation there, considering, you know, there must have been that callback saying he's on his own, he's all by himself, but Na'Vi don't skip a beat after losing that first player and immediately send on for the crossfire in that triangle formation. So I will say, you know, huge props to Na'Vi there to be able to hold on to that side. Unfortunately, down to 3 players. Sanhok, you really do start to thrive with the 4 intact, but 3 is still enough.
Meku got the first. Yeah, look at that. Very, very early, the knock there. I think it was just a couple of body shots, but maybe a lack of armor on the side of Big. Finishes off with the 1-2 punch. This is the thing, though, right? Na'Vi, they're good in the fight. We know that about them. We've seen that. Even their players can go 1v2 and still come out on top. Their setups for battles are really, really solid. The issue is that they're getting caught time and time again, and we've seen that here, right? Down to 3, you've said it. They're playing a little bit maybe too far towards Big. They're tempting fate when they don't need to.
Yeah, I think there's adjustments being made though with the rotating lobby, John. I think this is the major issue. Playing northwest side, especially so central like Na'Vi, you know, you're setting yourself up for a massive disadvantage. Yes, if the circle comes over to you, you can start to control that middle mountain, but unfortunately for them, you know, you're having MADBULLS rotate in on this location. Big usually plays up towards that northwest side. Eastern Stars in Hattin. You don't know if Game Law is coming across. So for Na'Vi, it's a little bit too little too late to be moving away from the northwest side and completely change their drop spot, because it's going to hamper them too much in phase 1 at this point in time. But they just have to be more careful with it. And I think there, though, again, it's that mental reset which feels to be coming into effect where, you know, you lose that first player, but Na'Vi brushes it off very simply, like you would just a fly on the shoulder, and easily regroups and reassesses the scenario. So I think for Na'Vi, yes, they're getting caught out, but at least now that that's idea of, you know, they're not just laying down and taking it anymore. It's a case of standing back up tall and getting back into fighting position.
See how well they can fight on out for the rest of this Sanhok. They've rotated down to the side of that northwestern island, so playing on those compounds, ready to cross should they need it, because the circle is centered on that confluence, right? That junction of the rivers that is notoriously tricky to cross late game. So you do want to get ahead of the curve if you can.
Yeah, this is the indecisive circle. Never really know where it's going, unfortunately. Could up towards the northeast, south, northwest. And you're kind of hesitant to move away from those positions just in case that, you get a good spot here. I think for MADBULLS, smart rotation from them. They send 2 down towards the south side, leaving 2 in Paradise Resort on the buildings. This is just in case it moves away. You have a quick couple of anchors that you can move over down towards, especially with this being Xeric, who is time and time again their lead scout right on the team. You know that if he's moved down towards the south side, it's more than likely that's their anchor spot going forward. But he's zippy with it, right? He's fast, and I like to see it. Having a player that's able to get you into position nice and quickly and provide the info back. I think MADBULLS really just thrive on the moment-to-moment gameplay, which is why I was surprised, basically just as surprised as Kalaris in that first game, where they weren't as aggressive as maybe I was expecting.
Ruthless Esports. I saw a sneaky little DBS from Salazar there. I've seen you. I know what you're up to. On the east side of Quarry, they've yet to skirt around it. Most likely they will need to. They haven't made that choice. Go across, go up, go down. But 4 Romanian men might make that choice for them, force their hand. I feel like south is going to be the more dangerous of the 2 paths, should they choose to take it, given that we can see the mini-map. But do they know that?
Again, it's this rotating lobby, which is what becomes a difficulty. I think, though, just purely if you look back on the VODs from the last week of Phase 1, you should know that, like, down towards Quarry, down towards Cave, that is a brutal area to be in. So if I'm Na'Vi, I think, the most heads-up decision right now would most likely to be heading down towards that Confluence compound, head on the wall and just hold out there for a little bit longer. But they really want to get spicy with it. They could move up all the way to Hartin and swing around Tap Mock. But I think being so close to this loot crate, it may be a better idea for them just to move across in the vehicles they currently have.
Try and get it done. 4 Romanian men are starting to push in. Just behind Ruthless Esports. Browner in the spotting tower. Just into this next circle. Crossing starting to come through now, starting to be executed, and executed quite well. ARB not really controlling too many of those crossings for the time being. And Na'Vi haven't made their full way through.
Again, if you're doing your homework, you're probably more concerned down towards that southeast side where a lot of these teams are getting caught up down towards Quarry. Ruthless Esports and 4 Romanian men, this is an isolated fight, just with the way that it's split between here and Quarry across the way. So Ruthless Esports just keeping aware of it. Don't want to move too quickly. I think they've been caught off a few times by making this rotation too soon. Slowly making their way over towards that top side, and I think that you're now seeing a lot of teams on the map take more presence on the north. Game Lord, Unicorns of Love, VP, just because, like, I think it was practically only MADBULLS in one of the games that held that northern side of the map for a long, long time, whereas everyone was just literally having a brawl down towards the south.
Might see a little bit more of that in the next couple of minutes. Team started to get a little bit too close for comfort. The last player for Big is still alive, by the way. Swave is on that northwestern side. I imagine it's going to be a med looting mission for this guy. And he's going to try and heal out for as long as possible. Moving forward, having the whole of Hartin essentially unlooted and fully available to grab up those meds, slurp them all up. That's going to be a lot of backlog there. A lot of bandages to be going forwards with as well. See what they can do. QODEX against XTEAM. Last time around, we saw it in Miramar. QODEX faltered it in their fight against XTEAM as XTEAM crashed on their compound, but the tables have turned and QODEX are on the outside this time.
Again, though, a fair bit of bullets coming their way, and QODEX just feel like they've not been quite able to return to form that we saw before. Folly moves up. Good shots from the side from Moneyken, though, and this guy has been absolutely fantastic when it comes to those fragging missions. In terms of doing the damage, sits him up towards 30 total eliminations now across the entirety of Phase 1, which is pretty damn good.
Zombie on the foothill there. Not quite able to get an angle back into the buildings. A risky push, but makes it happen. Sightlines for QODEX not quite there to shut it down. XTEAM lose a player. And then corralled into their compound. Next circle, pretty soon for this one. RV yet to make that crossing. You can see they're still on that western compound of the river. And we'll have to push a little bit further.
I think now for QODEX in particular, the next point of call should be staying wary of teams around them. You took those shots down towards XTEAM, and specifically with this circle, dropping right on top of your heads. They have been done in by third parties a few times here on Sanhok before, and it's something that, you know, they should be really getting used to now, which is immediately repositioning after a fight is not clean, it's not quick, and it's not a quick cut. So they do need to now move up towards the northern side, spot over, because they have the high ground anyway, so scouting shouldn't be too much of a problem. You've already caused problems for XTEAM, and they're not likely to be able to just send it up the hill now without at least QODEX hearing them, but I'm glad to see that their attention is now towards the north.
Unicorns of Love slowly making their way down from the northeast side, on foot for the most part. VIRTUS.PRO in those vehicles, trying to swing wide. QODEX are holding out Team Doom as well on the south side. Looks like 4 Romanian men might move into this position as well. VIRTUS.PRO skating down. Could potentially be an entrant into this fight too.
Don't know whereabouts this team is considering to go. I mean, even if they wrap all the way down towards PIONER Bridge, I don't think that's the most ideal positions. Again, it's that northern side that has been more often open, so perhaps they're maybe even trying to think about the mental game. A lot of these players, if they put the homework in, perhaps everyone's heading up towards the north side, so we can slip in down towards Camp Charlie or Cave. But again, 4 Romanian men and Team Doom locked in combat here.
Ooh. A lot of damage being thrown on out for Romanian men. Trading off 1 for 1, but more shots coming in. QODEX have oversight here, or certainly an angle or two. Nades pouring in from Team Doom. QODEX gets away with it. Hits the deck, wants the heal. Frosty close by, healing up as well. Nade over the top, yet again, not quite on the money.
You know, if this fight goes on any longer, this is the perfect opportunity for VP, actually. The fact this fight pops off right now is the best opportunity now for VP to get into the circle. If they're able to mop up both these teams coming through on the backside, you know, great stuff for them. Unfortunately, for Romanian men, it was so much open cover behind them. It's really possible to go for this. Now, these shots will be heard by VP. They're heading in front of them down towards Camp Charlie, in fact, so they're completely leaving this fight behind.
4 Romanian men, 3 up now, but there's a little bit of retribution from the top rope. Frost drops down, but it's not quite going to put them on ice just yet. Zero wants to try and hold out for Team Doom, but it's not looking good. Last player is there, 3 players down for 4 Romanian men. They can get these reses through in this phase, but they need to be fast about them.
Yeah, Phantom's just going to dip here. Literally slipping away into the shadows. 4 Romanian men might just be able to get their teammates back up. The next circle hasn't hit just yet, so they will be able to get off these heals. And quickly they loot up their own team member. A little bit unfortunate. But yeah, getting all 3 players back up again, not too bad for them. Team Doom kind of just whiffed that fight a little bit. And I think it all does come down to Rana there, who has some really good shots going their way. TJB, once again, big change of pace for them. They have the central position. Usually this is our heal-off team, but they're looking for more points on Sanhok. Unfortunately, so far, these central positions haven't worked out for them, just purely because they're not able to hold on to these spots. They're not used to fighting in the open on Sanhok. So I like this change of pace from TJB, though, trying to get a little bit more practice playing against these top teams in Sanhok. In like close quarters skirmishes, it will aid them in the other maps as well.
Unicorns of Love spotted out Death Machine all the way from the compound to the west of Quarry, chiming in on the fight here. Ruthless Esports still trapped out in the blue, and this is now zone 4 blue damage, so it does hurt. Crypto getting shunted in just that little bit. 4 Romanian men again engaging with Team Doom. They will get knocked, sure, but they do isolate that team and take them down. Unfortunately, QODEX is still there.
Yeah, QODEX able to pick up that elimination on Phantom as well, so gets another point in Team Doom to finish them off. VIRTUS.PRO moving in. They're also taking shots from QODEX, so QODEX doing a really good job to hold out all these teams. I'm very, very impressed to see this from QODEX, considering the different moves they've made to try and ensure that they don't get caught out again. TJB for Jason, Unicorns of Love for Maxman, and Kalaris is going for a little bit of a MADBULLS play there on the northern side.
Fair enough. I mean, eastern position for Unicorns of Love. Max hoping that they can sweep that one down, deal with Ruthless Esports and leverage that. Jason hoping that TJB can hold that central compound. And MADBULLS are just pretty good.
You know, it is a very classic Jason pick, right? He just looks for who's the most central and picks them. But it is surprising because this time around, I am going to agree with Jason. I think that TJB might just take this, considering the move they made as well. That is some unreal shots from MUERTE. Oh my god.
I mean, VIRTUS.PRO absolutely torn apart at the seams. They went for a pretty wild rotation there, and they are getting punished for it. So now I think it's just Yankee out in the blue, looking for some heals for the team. SHOCKWAVE is still going for big, by the way.
Yeah, just making it happen. He's over towards boot camp, close to the circle. But yeah, as I was saying, I am going to believe in the TJB with Jason. Not because they're central, but because they regrouped on these eastern compounds. They're playing together, and that's what I always want to see from TJB. They're opting not to take the massive split, but instead try and hold out these teams coming through from the edge.
XTEAM, QODEX, again, locking horns, and MUERTE goes down first. Nightmare and Andy playing as a duo against QODEX, but Nightmare is a little bit too far forwards. Potentially looking to be punished there. MUERTE crawling all the way back. And it's Take Aim Gaming who chime into the fight as well. Might give QODEX the room they need to breathe.
Next circle does head towards TJB. Now they do get lucky with this one. MADBULLS can still move down though, and that will be their big challenge. Take Aim Gaming lose their final player to XTEAM, I believe that was, who, like you said, are just really being the kryptonite to QODEX at the moment. Every single time they try and get into the circle, it's XTEAM who is there to hold them out. 3 eliminations.
Ooh.
And Andy's still going with the M762.
Doesn't even wait for the res. Instead, he wants to take some retribution. Nightmare crawling forwards, but QODEX ahead on foot, moving towards that TJB compound as 3. It's going to be a lot less impactful than as 4, obviously, but that is going to be potentially a game changer on the south side. Andy is still going as well. Folly will have spotted that duck up, and the nade at the back is good. Not going to take down Andy just yet, but the spray from off angle is on the mark, and will be able to take down XTEAM finally. QODEX heavily suffering against XTEAM in these past 2 games.
Oh yeah, they're literally just causing massive issues. Death Machine trying to coup through from the eastern side, but it's TJB who's taking shots. Of champions, Jamaz. Omar still left up here. Good shots from Omar there. Take down 1 player from the Unicorns of Love and spots a few more.
Roll Kiss now in the crosshair. We'll get the spray. Looking for the flush potentially. Gonzo down as well. These players on the outside, not a chance they're getting them back up. Crypto might be able to crawl back, but it's cut down as it's spotted. May ARB champions ruin the hopes of Unicorns of Love with 1 player left. It's Icy God.
8 eliminations for ARB as well, and that's without the hot drop over towards boot camp. So they've been really racking up the points. They haven't had to move too far from their original drop spot. Some good shots from Gonzo. Takes down Ruthless Esports as they come in, but Unicorns of Love left with just Icy remaining. GK first, and the team looking to flush out the remaining players from Death Machine, but they know they need to move. They need to get PIO on this circle, considering they're so close. They also need to be aware that there's many, many teams around them.
TJB have the compound on lock with a 1-1-1-1 split. Can NASA take the trade? Can he take this 1v1? Shao on the outside now. Will just get shut down through the window. Shao can make this run. The blue zone at the back. Not too healthy on the situation with the loot there. Well, level 1 helmet, level 1 vest, both heavily damaged there. Looks like TJB in general not super looted at this stage.
They've not moved a lot, right? They took this position, they took central, and they've waited for teams to get towards them. But because it's so open in this area, it's hard to pick up in these loot crates. And 2 go down straight off the back. As they get the circle as well, what a disaster.
Oh, that's absolutely disastrous, as you say. Icy God doing so much. Wave is still alive, Blank. He's still going. Tengska spotted out finally, and the 4 Romanian men bring us to 3 teams. SHOCKWAVE is still here, and he's quite close.
He is quite close, but I don't think close enough to get in. MUERTE looking for that final player and 4 Romanian men, and somehow No one predicted this happening. TJB, again, it's that problem where they're not speedy enough on that initial rotate. It's final player from 4 Romanian men taken down. And MUERTE with their second chicken dinner, if they can take down SHOCKWAVE, of course, but that'll be a back-to-back here for them.
Goodness me. The length of time that this guy's been healing is absolutely insane. He's looking for more first aids in that box as well. It is Zone 7, so there is a tick or two that you can spare, I believe, at this stage on the heal chain. And we'll be able to get that first aid off just in time. Necessary to stay alive. And we are just waiting this one out. Big. Not going to be able to do too much. Although, to be fair, there's only 2 for MUERTE. An angle and a double spray could be good, but it's out of first aids. MUERTE, chicken dinner.
The back-to-back coming through. Really, really good stuff from them. I don't think it was easy for them either, coming through on that side. And a fair few eliminations towards the end of that game. So very, very nice stuff. Again, it's that just they're not quick enough on that rotator TJB. They don't clear enough angles. They don't have the smokes available to them in that end game either. So, goodness me. I really hope that was the chance for them, honestly. But TJB, they do finally go down. I don't know how many points they're able to accrue because there was a fair few solos still left in the circle healing out towards the end. But it's Icy God to take down 2 of them and ladder up just a little bit.
Yeah, that was really, really pivotal there. Getting those spray downs. Very important. Unicorns love playing spoiler to that TJB chance and to Jason's prediction as well. I mean, you know what? He had to be wrong somehow. Why not wrong to Max's prediction, the Lone Ranger?
Yeah, I think that it's fair play. Fair play. For English, though, I think we do have to highlight this guy from MUERTE. Highest damage this map with the most eliminations. But so far, I mean, I said it last game on Miramar that he really has been the star player coming through from MUERTE. And I will stick to my guns with that one. I think he's just been doing really good stuff. Even last season, English was making some very good performances, and it feels like the rest of the team has been, again, I'll use that phrase, rebolstered around him to create something a little bit more consistent. And this way, he's able to pop off a little bit more because he's less playing defense now because Flyke's very good at that and more able to play that offensive role on the team.
Yeah, hoping to punch through those defenses. Seems that MUERTE going pretty solid right now. Trying to keep up that record, trying to keep that consistency will be key moving forwards for them to keep that tally up because it is all about closing in on those bonus points for the finals, right? So keeping that one alive, excellent if you can make it happen.
Yeah, getting into that top 12, important. Get that Live It game in. It is coming on day 6, so in a couple of days now on Sunday. But yeah, for MUERTE, if they can carry on with this, it will be extremely good. And again, in those first 3 days, John, they weren't bad either.
No, certainly weren't. Tell you who else who isn't bad, Blank. They're not bad. Come on, it's the desk.
Oh. Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. None of us are bad indeed. But MUERTE picking up back-to-back wins here. They were in 12th place at the start of the day at 73 points, and I'm really curious to see where they're going to be now. But for them to secure a top 12, where they're getting one step closer to obviously try to get that Live It game under their belts, and then potentially some extra points going into our first stint, and more importantly, into the finals. But we can see 26 points. So for MUERTE this time, I did criticize they had the zone going their way. They didn't get that many eliminations, but at least they locked the game down. This time, they get the zone to go their way again, but they get the 11 eliminations behind it to really show that they're a threat.
Yeah, one of the reasons why they were able to convert quite a few eliminations this game, 11 eliminations total, is because on the phase 2 shift, I believe it was, they instantly crossed through Painan because normally they go towards that summer location. Reason why TJB is not dropping that location is because MUERTE is very aggressive in the early game. But here they just crossed the river north of Painan and they just gatekeep all of the teams trying to enter from the western side. You had Na'Vi, you had yourself also Take Aim Gaming. So a lot of teams are trying to make that cross. So they just do it early so they don't get gatekept, and then they became the main threat over to the western side. And when they clear the west, very similar situation from that last game on Miramar where there's no one to contest their location, so they just push in the circle, they have the man advantage, they take the win. It's clean, it's efficient, and then they just get themselves the win off the back of it. So they found a method, and it's working out so far. Was my point that bad?
No, it's fine. That's just such a brave back-to-back chicken dinners, right? Just very brave. No, there wasn't really many people to contest them, as you're saying. I think something that really stands out once we take a look at the highlights is the fact that Big... How on earth did you get away with what you've gotten away with here? Suave really being able to salvage some of the situations for these guys at the moment. So manages to get himself all the way. Was it second place in the end? I think it is, right?
Second place?
I mean, he went from losing his team to getting second place and in the end more points than Na'Vi, who were the ones who took out his teammates. Like, that's insane. That's brave.
That's brave. That's very brave. Very well done.
It is a bit weird. I think this might be like kind of an effect of the rotating lobbies too. Maybe this is just a game where like Big or Na'Vi are like, oh, we forgot they were actually in this game this time around, and they just both drop on it. Because it happened in the past where they would both drop on the Northwest Island and never even get close to one another. But this time, Na'Vi instantly drop on like Big's Camp Alpha position, and they have the Big on clash at the start.
Yeah.
So it was a bit weird. Hopefully the next one that happens is not going to be the case. But yeah, as you see, second place for Swave.
Yeah.
Easy, mate.
There's a decent way to coexist up on that West Island, right? Like, I mean, they could, in theory, there's plenty of room to work with. Game Lord was up there, then makes the transition towards main island, and I think that's a decent play as a whole. Just obviously the circles don't quite go their way. They're having to approach the circles from the north, where there is potential kind of that barrier. But TJB and MUERTE, just in general, what they were able to kind of show here, I think TJB could have converted a little bit more, given their spot, but of course, if a circle shifts away from your compound, it gets very sketchy, Max, as to how you're going to be able to approach it.
Yeah, the thing is also with TJB, they have consistently been changing their drop location, and this head-to-head is very interesting because really the one that has put a span in the works for the normal strat of TJB, which is to heal off in the blue, is MUERTE, the drop in Same, right? MUERTE is the reason why TJB has not been able to find a main drop-in location on this match, and they have to change every single time, and not being able to find any remote kind of consistency is because of MUERTE. So TJB a little bit salty potentially about that one, but and even then they drop early towards the western side of what position was it? It was ban, and they just instantly rotate. They have no resources. You maybe got like a bunch of tier 2 assets, maybe a few decent weapons, but I need to see TJB spend more time looting, not to the point of like going for the heal strat, but just at least having enough to be able to take a fight on an even like footing with another team, which here wasn't the case.
It's a huge style shift for TJB that they have to get used to on Sanhok right now, and it will take some tweaking. It will take a little bit of time for them to be able to get it. I mean, if they're getting top 5 spots with it right now, that's pretty decent, but obviously they would like to have a bit more.
I mean, I think it was last season we criticized them as obviously doing this heal-off strat in Sanhok, but to be fair, whenever the zone did shift on top of them, they would sit and fight and they would intentionally go into the blue. But I am kind of curious right now because maybe TJB see this as a way to like practice going on into you know, later stages of this event or later events as well in general. But right now, they're not looking like that dominating team. Well, I can't say dominating. The team that would get a majority of points and a majority of like second place finishes when it comes to Sanhok. But I mean, either way, like the zone shift on top of them is unfortunately kind of shifted slightly away towards MUERTE. They had, you know, a decent compound to defend with for such a long time, and they still got some decent points in the end, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and also as Blank said, like English has been a really standout player for the team of MUERTE so far. He's been doing a lot of work for the team. And actually, I was looking at the entire roster and their background. They also have a Unicorn part of the team. There was an old player of 12-18 from CIS. Like, very, very talented team over in the CIS region in the past. So they definitely have that experience, right? A team that didn't have too much experience like watching them actually play with this type of roster, but so far they make it to the late game. They're able to convert it into a win, and they know how to get into the late game. So a scary team that can contest some wins is a team that could go really far here.
Okay, well, I did want to touch on Swave one more time really quickly. I believe we have something to show how much healing he was doing, because that's the part that I'm really interested in for him to survive that long. I think Kalaris even proposed the question when we were watching, like, what is he going to do now? And in the end, it was just kind of sneakily pick up as many meds as possible and just survive. And again, for Big, right, they're not looking too great. This is actually a massive victory for them in general if you think about the scope of the event so far, because they have not been a team who's been able to get decent finishes, be able to contend when it comes to eliminations where they were previously. So maybe this is the motivation boost that they needed.
Yeah, it's a decent point, Erna. I wonder if this makes them change focus a little bit on Sanhok. Because, I mean, the position that they're dropping on, if you get a Northwest Island finish, sure, fantastic, have at it, you know. But anything else, transitioning is difficult. But they've just kind of proven to themselves that the healing strat isn't too bad still. So maybe they do try it for it more on Sanhok. We'll see in the future.
Yeah, they could definitely give it a try, but look at that. Well, wow.
There we go.
That's just a line. What?
That's just a line, mate. It's just pointing upwards. Maybe that's in big
Stonks. Literally.
There you go.
I mean, you're seeing there, though, right? 15 damage, 1 elimination, and 2,000 healing. Like, his game plan was basically set for him the second that he lost his 3 teammates. And was like, I'm just going to survive the best I can. And it's a viable strategy. I mean, it secures you at least 12 points because that's second place. And then I believe they had like 2 eliminations behind that. So not bad in general for Big, but obviously not the way that they want to be, I'd say, performing in matches.
Yeah. I mean, even there, Swave, I think you just breathed on someone and they died with that 15 damage. So, yeah, not big fun Big. But we need to see some changes happen, right? And I think the Big can still do some big things. But they were known for being a very good aggressive team. When you add CIS teams to the mix, you're leveling up the entire lobby. So Big need to be able to reflect that change and hopefully step up on the long term. They're not there just yet, but I believe they can make the right changes to get there.
I think that's a good point you bring up, though. I mean, obviously, with the CIS teams coming in, I feel like they're more aggressive. They're better mechanically than the teams we've been seeing in general when it comes to West Europe. And they're able to fight teams really, really well. And I think that's where TJB, we saw excel initially when we saw them be able to fight with, well, GK first fight. But we'll see. We'll obviously have still 2 more matches left to go here. So let's go back to our commentators as the next match is ready to go.
And we're going back to Erangel as well. Back to the old Pachinki hot drop. Well, maybe not hot drop, hopefully. We've seen so many hot drops going on. The Stauber triple hot drop was pretty fresh in the mind from the first game, but maybe we'll see that change.
It's been all day, dude. I mean, I'm interested to see what will occur here, because going down to 54 players that early on is just unbelievable on Erangel, to say the least. But it's been some pretty horrific circles today, honestly. Fielded area over towards Erangel, then over towards literally the mountainside on Miramar, and then just complete dead open zone on Sanhok. So maybe we'll see something a little bit more playable. Let's put it that way. Here on Erangel, possibly even an urban finish. I wouldn't mind that at all. We only saw one of those towards the very beginning of the day of phase 1, and then also I believe it was Chumacero we saw over on Erangel, or it was, I think it was Impala. It was Impala.
So we're going to be looking out for the urban finish, military island finish potentially.
Maybe the military. I wouldn't mind a milli finish. The milli finish is always good fun. Yeah.
Ovo crates finish.
How about no vote to that, honestly? That would just be people hiding for about 10 minutes trying to look for one another, and then one dude up on the old cranes taking shots at people. We do get a very, very kind playing path that heads over towards underneath Yasnaya, over towards hospital, so a lot of teams be able to get into position. Millie slightly more out of location, so Arab champions, as well as a few other teams like Unicorns of Love, who like to drop down towards Nova Repnoya, a little bit put out here. I find that quite interesting as well. We do have so many teams dropping down towards Sosnovka itself. But this time around, Eastern Stars get immediately down towards MUERTE, so able to get into position very quickly here, John.
Looks like ARB are going for a backup drop as well. No military direction for them. Heading up to Severny.
Yeah,
in the middle of the plane path.
I think without... I believe we don't have Big in this lobby, so without Big here, ARB can comfortably head up towards Severny without any contest. So this is a smart read on the game, whoever made that call from ARB champions, and they'll be able to get into position real quick. Okay, so it looks like I'm not going to be getting any of those nice circles again. This is basically all the way down towards the southwest, so there's fields, there's still Sosnovka in this one. There's even potential that we drop over towards that bridge side on the west, which will be also just as uncomfortable.
That is really quite difficult circle going on. Those teams in the southwest maybe looking for more sanctuary than they are used to. Those rotations will be crucial from the eastern teams as well to try and isolate that position. You can imagine if a team takes up residence on Potato Hill, they could cut off a lot of those teams on the east, but there will be a lot of pressure put on them to be able to hold that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a compound down towards the south side of Potato Hill, which looks out towards the fields, which wouldn't be a bad position to play. I think for Gaka as well, there's easily positions there to hold down to. XTEAM's having out with everyone in the lobby recently. That's Unicorns of Love, who are trying to just make their passageway down towards Nova Repnoya. Not a bad decision either, considering with the circle, heading out towards Nova Upnoya, get very, very nice and looted, and then from there swing down on the Western Bridge. And with not a lot of teams deciding to head Sosnovka, they've got free reign here. And with it being the circle, you could spend a lot of time here too.
Yeah, you're really, really close, especially since it's only phase 1. You're going to have plenty of supplies to be picking through. And it's going to be difficult for them to know if ARB took the Western Bridge, but you've got to think that they wouldn't predict that. They would have seen people dropping on those vehicles early on out that they have dropped on. And they might have an inkling that they're the only team over there.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to even drop on those vehicles down towards Gatka. You'd be going through so many different teams there, John, as well. So you have a few players to take pot shots over towards yourself. So I think for Unicorn to love, I'm pretty sure they're assuming that they're the only team down here, as they were the fastest in to dropping out the plane nice and early to pick up vehicles early on. And I think if you wanted to do something similar, if you're ARB, you take basically the exact same rotation path to these guys and try and get in the vehicle as quickly as possible before people get to pick up those DMRs, pick up those M4s and slap a 6X or a 3X on them and just take shots at you as you razzing it through those fields.
Na'Vi in North George. Going to be looting up PIONER on South George, pretty close by. Their West Coast rotation, not as long as it has been some time. Obviously, that circle will be there, but they will have to make that rotation. Nonetheless, TJB, they're just getting in amongst it early on every single game. There's a knock over to TJB. Might be one more, no, but the wheels of the buggy certainly not so lucky. Could be a chase down going on. Pops out, gets tree cover.
Honestly, I can't say I rated that push from TJB whatsoever. There's an off angle as well, so XT is more than likely going to go down. Xiao's flushed out. TJB down to 2 players, so not sure what's happening with TJB today, but it's not looking good. Coming off the back of that game as well, you know, I was talking to the guys behind the scenes there just about how awful it must feel, you know, to leave a compound that you think, you know, you have to make the exit from, and then the circle to come right back on over. You could maybe have thrown down some smokes and sat there comfortably for a little bit longer there on Sanhok. So for TJB, today is just not going well. And that step up, you know, that we highlighted at the very beginning of the day, you know, has become quite the step down.
Back to the days 1 and 2 performance. Not good for TJB. Seems like XTEAM have been tested quite a lot in these last couple of games, as they're on our screen. And I feel like they haven't done super badly. I mean, obviously that first engagement with QODEX went very well for them over on Miramar. But they've been in a pretty sticky set of situations as time goes on. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to manage to extract that many points from those scenarios and leave themselves still towards the bottom of the table with quite a gap to go. But if you're going to start, you've got to start somewhere.
They're just taking fights, and I think that, you know, that's not the worst thing in the world, especially with the way these phases work. I think if you're a team right at the top who knows that you're a winner, right? Let's just take VIRTUS.PRO, for example, who are really on the big rise at the moment in terms of the lobby. Not seeing too much out of MADBULLS and ESSRs, although MADBULLS have been putting in some consistent points here and there to bring themselves up towards the top of the table. But if you're VIRTUS.PRO, you're looking for those consistent points to take with you into the finals. If you're XTEAM, on the other hand, and you're just really having a bad phase 1, you take those fights, you look to push your limits, and sure, you might go away with only 5-10 points going into the finals. However, at least you've got practice in. And coming into phase 2 and phase 3, maybe you can rectify some of those issues. Again, yes, it does put you far ahead with the format that gives you points going to the finals, but it's not so far ahead that if you improve a ton over the entirety of PMPL Western Europe, you can't bring it back in the finals still.
Wouldn't be easy, but it would be doable. You're right. That's what these teams are going to be looking for. TJB, though, with 2. They've been getting into plenty of scrapes as well. They have many a skinned knee on the team. Looking to reposition close to SHOCKWAVE, who have been doing pretty well today. Careening fast up the tables. They're in 9th now with 105 points, in amongst that big middle group of teams on those close point tallies. Looking for that spot in Livik.
Absolutely. We are starting to get a little bit more of a split towards the top side of the lobby, with some of the better teams starting to pull ahead just a little bit now, and then being some significant drop-offs. But we have had some different teams popping off today. I mean, MUERTE, who started the day in 12th, are now 6th, which is a really good result for themselves, coming to the day 4 of phase 1. SHOCKWAVE, though, down towards the yellows, with NEXUS just in front of them, holding out on that western bridge. Na'Vi, though, taking a fight with Death Machine, do find the initial knock onto our Harpy. That's also TJB finding at least one elimination onto SHOCKWAVE, which they caught out there.
Getting something from the game. I mean, you know, could be worse. Could have got 0 points, but now they're guaranteed at least that one. Unicorns of Love swinging down on the military base. You can see Gonzo on the north peak near C block. Crypto on the south side on that main road. There's the next circle shift. Blank. It's southwest again, sorry.
At least it's not Sosnovka, right? I think that's where you'd have the worst time of it. If it was down towards Sosnovka, a lot of teams have to change their approach in the circle. Luckily for Unicorns of Love, because it's such a heavy western shift, it does mean that the majority of these teams that were hoping to possibly camp towards this western bridge side will have to start moving, because they have prio on the circle. They need to get towards the center, find some compounds maybe towards that western side. Pioneer, who we've not seen too much out of over the last couple of games there, over towards that western side at the moment. Just keeping it calm, keeping it quiet.
They moved from that South George position. Na'Vi from the North George position. I feel like their western rotations in general on Erangel seem to be fairly sound. I mean, they're making another split player right now. You can see Kitsune out on the west, Tixi scouting down south. And they have that core of Matic and Meku, who've been operating together for so long, holding down their major spot there. There's the replay of Tingsko getting that catch out.
SHOCKWAVE losing that one player is a bit rough, especially because they wanted to move into the circle nice and quickly. And with this, they're not able to. QODEX moving the top side, might come into contact with them. TJB with Tingsko and GK first, still running. Take Aim Gaming, though, up against 4 Romanian men. Don't look to be in the best of spots, John.
Rana getting cut down. 3 players mount the staircase. Not even much damage sent in, if any. Mind a little bit ahead on the damage game, but they're all absolutely happy as Larry with that one. And there's the rundown. Take Aim Gaming. 4 players alive, 4 Romanian men. Only 2 of them as they try and move in on the northeastern side. Past Game Lord. Only 1 player on this position, so maybe the spray is not going to be super impactful. Narvalo, you can see he had the AUG there, grabbed that first airdrop. So some pretty laser beam sprays. Oh, a lot of damage over to Get Rex, but not quite able to land the final 5.56 is needed to get that knock.
A small cannon in the hands of Narvalo there. 122 points though, and honestly, just 1 point shy of dropping into 8th place. Pioneer just behind them, 121. So Game Lord really have fallen off a little bit. And I'll again reiterate what the guys in the desk said. These guys were the king of Western Europe for a long, long time. But it seems at the moment they just lost their way just a little bit. Worm tongue whispering in the ear. They just need a little bit of help to get back on track again.
They need to be exercised of that notion. QODEX on the outside of the compound SHOCKWAVE, on the southeast side near the bridge, as Unicorns of Love had made that crossing already, done so safely. All 4 of them still alive for the time being. Next circle soon to pop. This northeastern side, Take Aim Gaming, Game Lord very close to one another. The circle centers up
right on top of MADBULLS as well. Again, it's this fielded area to the northern side of Quarry. Well, these teams have to figure out where they want to play, which compounds they want to take, and where they want to stay as well, because, you know, it's that issue of like, where do you move next? I think this is always the thing on a lot of these teams' minds on this side of the lobby. Game Lord, very close towards take aim game. And this is the time for them, right? I brought them up earlier, and I think with this circle, they really do have to figure something out here, bring things back up to speed. This northeast side, they will have to move soon.
Decent stars are there as well. But I think they're hearing some of this gunfire. You can see that regroup up towards Pachinki. Potentially a reassessment of those rotational paths. Shots from Narvalo. Not quite landing, not just yet. Take Aim Gaming keep things going. Has to hop out beside the tree. First aid popped, Game Lord rolling this one away. They don't want to let this guy escape. And I think they might just have the angles for it. Nade over the top, sent in deep by Narvalo. Robs on the outside as well for Game Lord, proving to be such a thorn in the side, but that's going to be extracted. And there's more bandages in the back pocket. Unfortunately, not much more than that. Narvalo lands the headshot with the AUG.
Great shots there. But now Narvalo perhaps wants to pick up Robs here. Take Aim Gaming down on that side, you know, it's going to be difficult to rotate into a decent position. Death Machine, though, Molotovs. Toss from the top side towards Nexus, 2 eliminations.
3 players apiece for these two teams. I think he might have run through the fire there. Not ideal. Getting ticked down. A knock on the outside, leaves one on the ground floor for Hamodi to deal with. Not quite able to take that down. There's a player outside. That's going to get knocked, and teammate back up there for Death Machine is on the money. Nade down the hill, not even, sorry, the stairs. Not going to be finding what it's looking for either. And now there's only one player upstairs for Nexus, as the 2 players are down on the ground floor. NASA just picking that one up with the spray. Silenced UMP. Doran with only the one nade. Can't afford to put it down the stairs, but can afford to put down Hamodi. But there's one final shot from the nade to deal the final blow. Nexus eliminated.
Yeah, for Death Machine, kind of difficult to get rid of that single player on the top side, but, you know, they put enough members in, send the nade up top side, it was only a matter of time for them. They will lose 2 players for that. 5 eliminations, still you put 5 points on the game, it's decent. Konzo love Konzo just swings through very slowly there. Not sure how he got away with that one, but they're right down towards that southeast side. Towards the center, though, it's Na'Vi who picks up a good spot, but Pioneer still behind in the wings. Again, though, this quietness has to stop just a little bit. You know, you can stay silent. But when it's time to monologue, it's time to monologue. And I think with the position they have, you know, they should be center stage.
All eyes on them. But at the moment, XTEAM still fending off the unicorns on the south side, but there's an off-bank called QODEX. Oh, here they come, back in for the swing. Zombie and Beg for Mercy. Both really, really close to the blue, ticking down for Beg for Mercy. Wants to get back to the cover. Nightmare is low. The unicorns want to put the pressure on, but so do QODEX as the nade finds Beg for Mercy out in the zone. Zombie low. Nightmare not rezzed, not just yet. And more nades keep pouring in from Money.
It's been great at these nades so far. Able to finish off the team, but certainly puts the work in. Now Zombie can't quite pick the players back up. Will drop a couple of first aids in there. QODEX been sent back by XTEAM a fair few times, so this is a bit of revenge.
Will Zombie be able to get the heal off? I imagine he will, but PNL looking to deal the final blow, will be able to do so. Shockwave go down, but XTEAM are out.
And finally, retribution for the guys on QODEX. They are far out of the way, though, John, which is the issue. Far, far out of the way. So we'll have to move in soon. Narvalo's moving down. It's a very long push down towards the south side, very split away from his 2 teammates. And now he's looking to regroup. Just drop out the vehicle. Maybe he's going to take some shots, but we're here on Bowie Eastern Stars for just a second. And this is versus Na'Vi, who had that fantastic spot within the circle. We're just zooming about. There's too much action here, John.
QODEX want to hop in towards the MADBULLS position. Monkey in the building alone right now. MONEYKEN up against the wall, so is Folly. Smokes dropped out the back, and there's a Molotov to slow down that angle. The rest of MADBULLS looking to try and get some backup, but so do QODEX. PNL immediately shut down. Monkey on the doorframe, looking to try and swing from it and take down one of those players. Will be able to find the 1-for-1 at this stage. MONEYKEN, last standing, spotted in the corner, flushed out. MADBULLS, stay strong, stay together.
Effect down to Skills. Force from the side. MONEYKEN might try and finish this, but Skills, such low HP, and they might be able to get 3 players up here, despite the awkward finish to that fight.
Unicorns of Love putting nades in towards Team Doom on the south side. Sprays are good. Phantom falls. 4 players up for Unicorns of Love. Already zeros down, and Easy is the last player standing. Now Molotov stops the hop out of the window to try and go for some sneaky plays there. There are off angles as well that the Unicorns can start to occupy. How long do they spend on this? Because they still have to get ahead of the curve and get towards that fight, that engagement with 4 Romanian men. Team Doom are down.
Gonzo, though, you can see him scouting on the top side there, so really heads up play from him to make sure that there is a position for them to head over towards as soon as they finish this fight. But 4 Romanian men, they have eyes on. It's only 2 players, Killer and Get Wrecked, but difficult to spot this one out. Looks like they won't be picking up that buggy anytime soon, considering the wheels just get shot out there. Luckily, there is a vehicle for Rollkiss, and the rest might just be walking it in.
Na'Vi will have to push through the Eastern Stars or skirt around them. They'll have to choose their path. I think Na'Vi was Jason's prediction. PIONER was Max's or James's, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Kalaris, and ARB was taken up by the other analyst, whichever one it wasn't. So the northwestern side kind of looking good to the analysts.
Absolutely. Most of these teams, well, the analysts kind of know what they're doing. Got to get one of them right sometime, though. Feels like the streak of analysis has gone a little bit downhill. Maxman was really coming in with some big blessings last week. Champions, though, nade over the top. Again, this is the problem with Pioneer. It's just too silent. That would take too much of an aggressive play here. And Arab Champions just sending grenades in. Now have a good idea where they are. 1 player down, but this is the fight between Eastern Stars and Na'Vi, and already starts off extremely well for Na'Vi. Matic putting it in.
I'm taking them out almost immediately. A really fast, aggressive push from Na'Vi. That's what we were talking about. Their skill in the fight is incredible. It's getting to those fights that potentially needed work. They are now in the position, though, to get into this late game with their full squad and play as they love to. ARB suffering a little bit more heavily. James was the one who predicted Pioneer, and I mean, he really wanted to see them take home a chicken dinner. Sorry, Maxman predicted ARB. James predicted Pioneer. Really wanted to see them take home a chicken dinner, and I feel like that's coming through in the prediction.
You say Maxman predicted Pioneer and James predicted Pioneer, though.
Things are getting crazy in this lobby. It's Maxman who predicted ARB. It's James who predicted Pioneer.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. I think for ARB, though, they have held a really nice angle on this northern side towards Pioneer. And yeah, they are going head to head. And Na'Vi moves in Kitsune towards just the little underneath of the hillside here, towards that eastern side, and takes really towards the high ground.
MADBULLS, last player. Taken out on the southeast edge. Unicorns of Love, Game Lord suffering. Game Lord actually down and out. Will be fully eliminated there. We'll go no further. Pioneer, 4 players alive. As ARB are eliminated as well. The north side starting to clear out as the south just did.
Has felt a little slow from Pioneer, but slowly and surely they do get it done. Na'Vi's down to just 2 here with 2 players knocked. They took an extremely aggressive approach to this circle, and Unicorns of Love are punishing them for it. It was a risk that's just not quite paid off, and Gonzo finds another, and Pioneer will finish the job.
Wow, all right. All of Na'Vi swept out, but Pioneer now have the attention of the Unicorns of Love. 12 eliminations so far on this game. They're looking for more. There was a knock, and that will be waiting to bring it up to lucky 13 for the Unicorns. Death Machine with 2, the only team in the circle fully.
Pioneer is really good at scything the wheat, right? You know, getting those third-party knocks, finishing off teams, crippling teams as well is something they're extremely skilled at. You know, their macro is fairly unrivaled. Fortunately, at least on Erangel, the team fighting is good enough, but it's some of these teams who are just mechanically skilled, like Unicorns of Love, they just can't quite contend with them.
Knock over towards Pioneer, and a second as well. Death Machine set up that crossfire, stealing away those points as well. Potentially Pioneer really suffering now, down to just 2 standing. Neither of whom are in this next phase circle. Unicorns of Love surround. They smell that blood in the water and the shocks move on in. Flash, Black-White having to fight out with Death Machine all the while, plinking away, sending that lead in. And on the most part, finding the money. Black-White potentially spotting Crypto, who runs down his teammate. Doesn't matter if you spot him, if you can't stop that buggy, it's gonna go pretty poorly. Pioneer down. Unicorns of Love, 15 eliminations now. They are ramping up for a massive chicken dinner on Erangel.
Yeah, they have pumped this game, and now it's just 2 players that remain. And so far, Unicorns of Love, just in terms of distraction and the ability to use this utility.
Oh. And in goes Crypto for the final blow. Wants to take that challenge. Weapon swap is there, and the spray goes on in. It's Unicorns of Love. 17 eliminations on the game. A rampant victory for the Unicorns to ride strong.
And it's the Unicorns of Love to get just that little bit of retribution from the last phase where they finished it off, just not in the way they would have liked over towards Sosnovka, where they played a very smart game and a very good game, to say the least, but weren't able to take down TJB with a bit of a bodged crash. But I think in those final moments, you just show how skillful a lot of the players on Unicorns of Love are. Icy being very trustful in Rollkiss to just basically roll around the map in the vehicle, and I think Pioneer do the smart thing is to try and not focus on that too much and then split apart so they don't get both naded, and even if one does, the other survives and is able to maybe go for a refrag there. However, Icy doesn't have to do too much. All he has to do is throw that nade, and it separates both those players, and Rollkiss is able to run down one of them. Again, they're just using that 4-player advantage in that game to just ensure they get the victory in a lot of those knocks and a lot of those team fights. And I think this is the first time I've really felt like I've seen what Unicorns of Love can do as a team, because as a team, each individual player serves a singular role very, very well.
Pink shirts back on top for this one. Let's head back over to the desk.
Yes. Thank you very much. Who's that voice? I'm not sure. Yeah, Unicorns of Love finally able to do what we expected to see them perform from the very start of the tournament. Got a little bit of time to get there, but as Blank was saying at the end there, everyone had their role to play. And the moment they have that high ground position, they get the information, they get the perfect angles on the team that are trying to push into the circle. The execution was clean. I just wish we could see this more often from the Unicorns.
Sure, it's once they actually guarantee themselves a decent spot to be able to then start flexing out, splitting even 1-1-1-1 in those later moments where they're like, okay, we know the lay of the land, we know which teams are kind of in which spots and scenarios and things like that. We are going to absolutely suffocate anybody else that is in these final moments. And Unicorns of Love is one of the best teams at doing that. It's just getting to that moment that usually is the thing that kind of stifles them. Wow.
I mean, we've been talking them up for so long, and we're finally seeing them actually get a decent result. I feel like it's been forever since we've actually had this happen, probably since last season.
Yeah.
But 17 elims, like that's a great confidence booster for the team, and obviously with the roster changes they've had, it's nice for them to finally get a victory under their belt so they can take some pressure off of them.
I think it's our elimination record actually for after a win.
It's not only a win, it's the biggest win. And the way they were playing from that south side and just kind of, they were doing a lot of basically third partying, but like at just the right times, just coming into those fights exactly when they needed to. And it's the perfect way to just sweep up points and move on. I think the second biggest was NEXUS with 16, right? So just something a little bit above them. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, as Unicorns of Love Rise, that they can get into those game-winning moments, right? It's great. I wish we could see this more. The thing is that we saw in the last few matches for the past 3-4 days now is that they tend to lose players a little bit early sometimes. If they can just fix that one singular issue, this is what Unicorns of Love can do in the late game when they still have 4 players alive. Every single time, I'm sure they can do something similar to this. They can definitely get the eliminations. I mean, we saw there, Kalaris get 9 eliminations from Icy alone. He was one of our biggest standout players in the previous season in spring. It's good to see him back, but the whole team in particular, they were hyped up very heavily. It took some time, but if they can remain even remotely close to these type of performance and get to the late game as a full squad, I feel like this is Unicorns of Love that potentially has turned a new leaf.
You know, it's basically like roster changes we've had for some other teams, like TJB, for instance, right? With Gonzo coming in for the team as on loan, I guess, if you want to say it. Like, they have a lot to adapt to, a lot to learn from. They don't have Alicio, who is as well like a big standout player for them in the prior seasons, and they just kind of, well, they also lost Daddy too, right? He retired, so it's really tough for Unicorns of Love to bounce back from this.
Yeah, it's quite the change. I mean, Rolkis was previously on the roster as a whole, right? And then he left, and now he's back. So that's kind of familiar territory almost, in essence. But with Crypto, of course, is the big kind of addition or the big change that we see here. And I think he's been yet to properly show his, I was about to say guns, but you know what do you know what I mean by that? Like, I think we've not yet seen like the Crypto effect in action here for them. So I'm hoping for that.
We haven't seen what kind of caliber of player he can be yet here in the Battlegrounds, but let's actually dive into their stats just so you can see who was really standing out. And to be fair, Crypto, you know, second on damage right there. I mean, again, with a 17 elimination victory, you expect to see players to be decently high on damage, but those 9 elims out of Icy, I mean, he's been so quiet. He's been a puddle of water so far in this event. Things are starting to cool down for him.
Icy is an incredible player, but he needs a team to play with him, right? He's not going to be able to just 1v4 an enemy team every single time, especially with a lobby that's full of CIS teams now. It is not easy to do that. It's not like the previous season where he would do that a lot of the time. Like, this is a completely different approach he has to take. So having a team around him, he can do some proper setups. He can get those 9 eliminations here right away. So I'm really pumped to see Icy up there. But as you said already, Kalaris, Crypto, MVP from Pakistan here, really showing up. So we got 2 fraggers here looking good.
That's a really good point you bring up about he has to, like, work with the team playing around him. Because in my head, the last iteration of Unicorns Love, it was let's play around Alicio. So maybe it's like a massive adaptation in how they approach the game of, okay, now Icy's gonna be the player that we're playing around instead of Alicio, and see what we can do. And maybe that's a good sign for Unicorns Love, this victory here, that they've been working on some things and they've been improving.
And that's actually a really good point, Jason, because it did feel like in the previous season there was almost that conflict, right? Really, like, who do you play around? And as you say, for a bit it was Alicio, and then Icy comes along, and it's like, but he is this player that everybody is touting as an excellent player to build a team around. So maybe if it really does come to fruition and all these blocks kind of piece themselves around Icy, maybe that could be the thing. Maybe there isn't too many big star players at the top. I mean, I know Rolkis can be fiery sometimes, but you know, maybe Icy's the guy to build it around.
I'm wondering if we can actually check in with our overalls while we have a little bit of time here, because we only have 1 match left to go, which is going to be over on Miramar. But I'm curious to see if we've had any major shifts, because we did have MUERTE pick up 2 victories, so they should have been able to shoot up the leaderboard when they were in 12th place previously. I wonder if Unicorns of Love as well have been able to get a decent shoot up, because it's really hard to keep track of, I guess, the point discrepancies between different like tiers in our rankings. Like right now, almost a 40-point difference between MADBULLS and Eastern Stars. That's in its own tier of itself. And you look down the list here, and then there's like 162 to 156 cutoff, where Pioneer joins in at 6th place. But great to see MUERTE though on the first page.
Yeah, MUERTE able to push himself up. I mean, those 2 wins, you expected something like that to happen. We were just a few days into the tournament, like MUERTE was expected to be at least on that first page. So good to see on them. Of course, if they can keep it up, that's good. We saw the circles being a little bit advantageous. They were able to play around that, but if they can remain up there, not fall off like I saw a little bit happen sometimes on QODEX, I think that will be my question mark for MUERTE right now.
I mean, 2 things from me. I mean, the 2nd through 5th, extremely close, right? Like, these teams are quietly just on par with one another for a bit. Also, I completely forgot, but I really want to talk about it right now. I didn't realize MADBULLS is coached by Pokemolodoy, who has a wealth of BR experience, and I didn't realize until about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago. So that's huge in itself. So I'm very excited now, even more so, to watch MADBULLS and kind of the choices that they're making based on that potential. So yes, please, more of that.
Let me ask you, James, Are you seeing that kind of play style replicated in how we've seen MADBULLS play?
I've not been looking out for it yet. So now, of course, my mind's going to be ticking over and I'm going to be like, is it kind of, do I see those trends kind of occurring here in the games coming up? So we'll see. I'll keep my eyes on it.
We saw that Sanhok game where they actually got themselves the win, was that instant rotation on the Northwestern Island, right? So I think he has definitely played a role, it seems, in like those kind of plays, because they were the only team to really adapt that well and that quickly to the group changes every single game. So I'm sure that like he had some role to play, but we'll see as the days go on.
I mean, to be fair, Class Digital Athletics, we had the same thing happen last year, where they brought in a coach who had a wealth of VR experience, and then all of a sudden they became one of the most dominating teams in the world, if you think about it, you know, back to like the PMGC times. So interesting to see like how big of an impact a coach really can be on a roster, and something to keep in mind for all the teams who currently don't have one.
Yeah, like in Turkey, for example, I think Supermassive Blaze is now coached by Sixmo. So I'm hoping that maybe they are also able to have kind of a step up as well. So yeah, I like the dynamics that coaches from, you know, who have this wealth of BR experience can come in and give, because map knowledge is a massive thing, rotations is a massive thing, and all of these kind of add up to just being able to add better components to your gameplay. If you're a great fragger, it's fantastic, but there is a lot more than just fragging that goes on in PUBG Mobile.
I think we've seen a lot of like rotations as well, and positions that you want to take, advantages in every single zone that you possibly can go for, which I think a coach really does give you, especially if they can interact with you a little bit live to help you make some calls. But really great to see, though, that coaches are making such a big change to teams and helping them improve on. Now, if only we could find a coach for ourselves, because you know what, Avenger, I can't stand to listen to one more second when playing. Let's turn over to our commentators, some people who I do like listening to, John, Allen, and Blake.
That's very nice of you, Jason, that you like listening to us. I mean, that's heartwarming as a sentiment. But yeah, I can only agree. Avenger, don't coach me, please.
I like Avengers coach. You know what you guys are on about. It makes the right calls a lot of times, just because you guys just want to go off in the opposite direction. Look, okay, Avenger knows where it's at, and I may be the only one here. Unfortunately, we're going to go straight over to Miramar instead. We're not listening to Avenger anymore, and instead some of these teams are going to try and avenge what has happened throughout the day and try and pick up some extra points right at the end of day 4 of phase 1. So this is the very first day coming back after the initial half of phase 1, so a lot of these teams would like to get a few more points towards the end. Maybe some of these teams at the top who haven't been able to find themselves the most marvelous day around.
No, it's but then again, it doesn't need to be marvelous. It just needs to be solid, right? If you're hitting 35 points on the day, it's good news, right? Like that's okay. That's good enough to see yourself looking pretty solid for those bonus points in the phase. Looking good to get towards Livik as well. I have to wait and see who's going to be able to reach that mark, who will be able to jump that hurdle as we head into the Miramar.
The Miramar, the only Miramar around. I think this is our last Miramar of the day, so you're sort of correct in that sense.
Playing
waiting
on
for the
PUBG
playing path.
Mobile.
The PUBG Mobile on the Miramar, with the playing path coming from the north side of La Coparia down towards just past Chumacero. So very similar to what we saw before in our last Miramar, except this one's just a little bit further off to the western side. So slightly harder to head over towards El Azahar, Minas Generales, or La Bandita, but still definitely doable with the vehicles that are given to you. MUERTE's back in, so Hacienda potentially for this team is a go for them, considering Game Lord just haven't been having the best of days, and perhaps MUERTE just feeling a little bit more confident.
Seems like a couple of teams we were looking for to have good days, just not quite meeting that mark. Na'Vi, 15th place, TJB, 11th place, both of whom not playing in this game, so that will be the end of their day. Not ideal. I mean, we saw glimmers from Na'Vi, TJB not so much, but it's not ideal for these teams, right? They'll have another 2 days worth of games to try and buck their ideas up, and there is potential to be able to lead out into this field and gain a little bit of points in that middle pack. But you were talking about it last game, that top spot has really started to open up. I think Kalaris was talking about it on desk as well. 3rd through to 9th is also fairly open. It's fairly malleable in terms of the progression that can happen over these next couple of days.
Yeah, 2 days left to jump between maybe an 11-pointer to a 17-pointer coming into the finals. It's quite big. With Na'Vi no longer in the game, though, Shockwave, who have been feeling very confident today, take up their drop spot over towards La Cabrilla and then can move down. Unicorns of Love, I feel like they're scouting for vehicles at the moment, perhaps even moving over towards El Azahar. Not a bad idea for themselves. But it's XTEAM who are over towards Hacienda del Patron, and MUERTE who are picking up a comfortable position over towards Monte Nuevo.
I put so MADBULLS still holding that top spot in the tournament with a 39-point lead. They've been keeping that fairly established very effectively. Over 200 points so far, so looking good for those 20 points if they can keep up pace. But we haven't seen the fire that we've seen from them in previous days today. It seems maybe a little bit more cruise-like.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, they ended on 169. That's Pioneer going down again. This fight between Big and Pioneer going terribly for Pioneer, considering, you know, Big usually plays on the uphill, so they changed their location of drop and instead go for Pioneer from this angle. And I think that Ruthless Esports are a little bit further up towards the northern side, so Big opt to go for this fight instead. Really good adjustment from Big, considering they were having it handed to them every single time on other Miramars. Again, back to my original point, 169 points for MADBULLS at the beginning of the day, now up to 201. So that's a 32-point scorer so far. And if anything's to go by, you know, if they get another 10 points this game, they're on track for a pretty decent average as long as they can go for another big win over the next couple of days.
They've kept 50 points over 4 days already, which is good, right? 50 points per day, that is, to already break that 200-point margin. And that is, well, better than any other team right now. They are in first place. The only team to break that barrier so far, if they can keep that record going. Black-white, 4 players swinging on the same angle at the same time. With your back to the wall, I don't think that's doable.
Yeah, big setup. Well, and now Pioneer just to move off towards that northeast side with Fash dropping into a compound just further down range. Now Chumacera is free and clean for Big to loot up in. Now, Big's been one of those teams that just hasn't had the most amazing performance. 16th place right now, 83 points. Again, still malleable, like you said before, John, in those spots up towards 10th place. So the lot can change, but again, it's not the Big that we're used to. I think Jason's looking for something a little bit more from this team. Had a few issues, but hopefully they're now resolved. But for Big, you know, they have some big names on that team. Got Beast, Michi. You know, these are all players who have really put in work, put in time within the Western European scene, and have astounded a lot of us, especially when they were back, you know, playing on Destiny. You know, that was a team that, you know, every time you headed up to Sanhok, you were like, right, this is one of the most unpredictable maps, but we know Big is going to be at least in the top 3.
Yeah, it seems that they have faltered just that little bit in their progression, but there is still time. And it is only phase 1, so even if it's not the best phase for them, there'll be time to readjust, there'll be time to get their prep on. I mean, they should have been doing that the whole time, as I imagine all of these teams are, but hopefully an opportunity to regain some composure with the full point reset on the phase. It can be a little bit of a weight off your shoulders mentally, right, for these players.
Look at the Miramar stats for the MADBULLS. Average survival time about 22 minutes is pretty good. You know, most of our games do end around about 26 minutes, though, on Miramar, sometimes even longer. And if you wanted to go for that 10 points, though, you know, 4.75, you're already practically, let's just say, 5 eliminations. You're 5 points up. You're just looking for another 5 points, which is not hard to do if you get towards, you know, that 6th to 9th place range. You're then able to pick up a few more points and hit that 10, and now you're on track for the day, for at least MADBULLS. And so far, you know, their lead, though small, is quite big at the moment, John.
I know that sounds... my head around that.
Yeah, I know. 40 points ahead. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot for phase 1. But considering we only got 2 days left, like, it's going to be hard to catch up to that if MADBULLS continue on the approach they have.
Yeah, with a 40-point difference. I mean, it's 39, but close enough to 40, right? What's that, over 8 games played for each of the other teams, with 4 games played a day. That'll bring them up to needing 5 more points than MADBULLS every single game on average to be able to draw level. And that's assuming the MADBULLS continue on their current trajectory, which, to be fair, if they're turning it down a little bit from those first couple of days, they'll be a little bit lower than that trajectory, as they have already made the glut of their points in that first week of Phase 1.
Exactly, and again, it's that 40 point a day. Yeah, it's not as big as maybe an Eastern Stars with 50 point a day, but it's still good enough, right? Especially when they're sometimes hitting those 80 point days, which are just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is pretty nutty. Shockwave. Started the day well. With a chicken dinner on Erangel. From down in a ditch. Under the view of the MADBULLS themselves. And were able to get into top 3 in the first Miramar of the day. So if they can repeat that performance now. A lot of teams looking pretty good on Miramar. I mean, you've got 5 average eliminations here. It was 4 point something, I think, for the MADBULLS, 4.6 for VIRTUS.PRO.
4.2.
It all comes down to...
4.75 for MADBULLS.
Ah, okay, there we go. But it all comes down to that survival time in terms of those point values.
Yeah. I think for Unicorn, we've actually seen probably some of our best teams here on Miramar, to answer, other than Death Machine. Unicorns of Love typically make it very, very far towards the end of the circle. Team Doom, 22 minutes as well, roundabouts. You know, you're losing a lot of these players early on. You have one that kind of crawls through to the end. But Team Doom also another team that has surprises here on Miramar. I would say, you know, it's been awkward at the end for this team. That is an important knock there coming through from MUERTE onto MADBULLS, though.
Ooh. Getting the rundown as well onto Monkey. Skill's not in a position to get any sort of revenge. QODEX as well. Might have heard that. Heard the vehicles across the way. Shift towards Los Leones. You might get your urban ending you were hoping for in Erangel here on Miramar.
I might do. Los Leones wouldn't be a bad place to end it. Puerto Paraíso currently owned by VP, who have just consistently not had to move at all. So they have the lion's share of the southeast side of this circle. But Shockwave, as well as Unicorns of Love, you can imagine both of these teams will be moving down. I think for Unicorns of Love, real priority for them, considering they know exactly where Shockwave rotated off towards, is to get in vehicles right now and try and razz it down towards Impala or one of the compounds that just watches over those eastern roads, so they can actually kind of hold out Shockwave and maintain a little bit more zone. Especially with so many teams having to drop towards the western side of the map just purely because of the playing path, this would be the heads-up move for Unicorns of Love.
So if they can make that move. A lot of teams moving to those north hills, north of Los Leones. See Eastern Stars mounting, that's on the east side of those hills. Death Machine were a little bit ahead. They're already at the back on the Los Leones side of those hills, and Game Lord as well pushing in from the north side. So a lot of teams looking for real estate around here.
I mean, it's a position that's fairly strong, especially with Eastern Stars. You know, you don't want to go too far into the city. If you've been watching PUBG Mobile for a long time, you will know that. Just considering leaving the city becomes very difficult, and there will be a lot of eyes looking your way. The expression, feeling the eyes in the back of your head, cannot be understated here when you're sitting around in Los Leones, because it really does feel that way.
Scouting being done by Eastern Stars right now. Not really spotting out too much. MADBULLS with 3 players. The northwestern side slowed down by their engagements with MUERTE, but if they send to the north side of Picardo, they might have a better time of it than a lot of these teams on the south side of them right now. Looks like QODEX are going for this airdrop as well, that is on this western edge.
Yeah, quick pick up on that, get some loot, get some level 3s. That'll assist you as you have to move down some pretty open area. And you're kind of locked into this rotate. Now, this is the rotation we were talking about earlier from the Unicorns of Love to try and hold out on Shockwave. Rolkis lets a couple of them pass. They're not able to take too many shots, but now there is players behind, and these are the ones that they can try and cut off here.
They have managed to find that middle point, and they're looking for the squeeze, but only damage found right now. Looks like they have managed to get that isolation going and bringing themselves a favorable fight. Pioneer, one player alive, swings the corner, and it's the whole of Ruthless Esports bearing down. Pioneer down.
Yeah, you're pretty terrified when that happens to you. Personally, wouldn't like it. This is, again, I still really like this play from Unicorns 11. It's one that I called early on. And I think Gonzo is really the guy that marshaled that happening. Sent down very, very early. Again, IGL, back when he was on Kanina Power, very good at calling the shots and sends him to a position where the rest of his team can regroup on top of him. And now they've really thrown Shockwave for a loop. You can see two of the players currently in one vehicle, so they must have been able to hit a couple of tires, which forces them now onto the buggy. And again, it's a desperate regroup coming through from Shockwave.
Two players there in this compound. Ooh, just not quite finding the angle into Azza.
He wasn't looking for it, he looked for the vehicle pop. He got the wheel there, which is exactly what you need to do. As long as you can limit those vehicles onto Shockwave, you know, more and more they're going to have to drop into the same one. And you don't really have to worry about that team anymore, because you can see Icy is the only one who's left behind. The rest of the team is now sweeping down towards the south side and making it so Shockwave have to push through one of the most dangerous circuits into the circle itself, with a heavy shift on the western side, which MADBULLS extremely happy about.
Nexus Gaming not so happy right now. VIRTUS.PRO swinging out on the balcony, and will take one of Nexus inside Los Leones. The rest of Nexus are fairly disparate right now. DBS in hand, but Sulika catches the broadside on that and puts the holes in perfectly.
A lot of teams have committed now to Los Leones, understanding there's not a lot of positions left and shots now coming through from along the way. That's 4 Romanian men off in the distance. Death Machine still have that central position, but it's Eastern Stars who are crashing in just behind VIRTUS.PRO. And have they heard this?
VIRTUS.PRO certainly should have been able to hear these vehicle engines running strong behind, trying to bank that off the pillar. Not going quite low enough to get down to the ground floor, but does isolate a little bit of that higher level. Ooh, that's a sneaky little nade angle there through the scaffold, through the building, but this finds sanctuary.
Yeah, quickly tucks in. Again, not seen that one before, so I'll be making sure to remember that one for the games in future. Shots coming in from ahead, and I think that 4 Romanian men are very aware of this position, but so is VIRTUS.PRO aware of the sightlines. Just want to loot up as much as possible. Icy finds shots over towards Eastern Stars. This is behind VIRTUS.PRO. They tried to move up towards the cylinders here. Might be a chance for maybe Unicorns of Love if they can get Crypto along their side to be able to crash into that and perhaps take up position towards the south. Again, no one really in a favorable position. When 15 teams alive and 56 players still up and ready, you know, there's not a lot of place in this circle where it shouldn't be contested.
Next circle pops in right on towards Death Machine's position on the west end of Los Leones. Going to be a tricky set of maneuvers from this south side. There's a lot of teams creating a barrier there.
Death Machine once again. It's that Picardo beginning, right, where they can get into a decent spot. I do think that this circle does favor them, and they've had that quite frequently. But I think it only looks that way because on certain games, they'll send to a position and they'll get circle look there, and on other times it'll look like they've got circle look, but it's just a good heads-up rotation from them. Either way, it's happened so frequently that you can't really call this a fluke anymore.
I think VIRTUS.PRO just took down Nexus, if I'm not mistaken, in the central area. Right next to 4 Romanian men and MADBULLS as well. MUERTE, they took down one of the MADBULLS earlier, and are they going to be able to leverage that in this engagement? 3 players from MADBULLS holding out. So MUERTE try and skirt around the sidelines. Swift reverse coming through. Looks like they don't want to go for the crash, not just yet.
Let's go to pick up Dadaev and Flyke, who did get knocked, and that could be from ROMANIAN or VIRTUS.PRO. There's a load of angles on that top side, and I didn't quite catch the elimination feed. VIRTUS.PRO tried to get some height with Yankee, and now it's ROMANIAN who are moving up towards this position. They have nades. Unfortunately, it's Yankee with 4. He's looking to maybe just try and spot that player. Decides better of it. That's GameLord, though, taking a fight with QODEX. Again, Narvalo goes in. I'm not super confident in GameLord, though, honestly. And this is their chance to prove me wrong.
Nade off the top windowsill. Bounces down. QODEX. A lot of damage sent out that way. It's good news for Narvalo, who's right there. PNL gets absolutely sat with a headshot from the spray. Suppressed M4 as well. So the teams around him a little bit less of an idea of where those shots are coming from.
Might be time for GameLord to just send it in, which is they're doing now. They've got so many knocks on this that they would be kind of silly not to push it. It's Robs, Victor, and Akashi, with Narvalo playing backup with the M4 from distance.
Ooh.
The shots from the side is big.
There was a pinball on an 8 there. I'm not sure if that bobbled down or if he managed to get it back in before he was knocked. It looks like they will be safe for now. GameLord falling back and go for the res. Narvalo, you can see him up on that high ground. They don't really want to go in for this full 3v3. It would give QODEX a chance that isn't necessary right now.
Unicorns are slowly pushed up during all this towards Eastern Star's position. The Eastern Stars still sat up with 4 players. You can see them holding several different angles. And this is something the Eastern Stars have been very good at, which is supporting one another's sight lines. Just wonder how well they can pull it off here as Bazzi gets caught out in the open, but Rollkiss gets taken down by Kapahala, which starts things out very well. Oh, okay.
Icy God with a nade over towards Kapahala. I've no idea how Bazzi managed to get through that road gauntlet, but does manage to stay alive, get some healing done, and now Gonzo spotted, not knocked. Finally, the last bullet finds its mark. Icy God wants the same cross, but there's more bullets, more barrels pointed their way. The reload is good, Crypto falls, and Bazzi is on the warpath for Kapahala.
They've just got absolutely no clue, and they were desperately trying to get away from the bullets coming through from 4 Romanian men, sending in the jump punches, and now Icy God's got a tall task ahead of him, has to remove Bazzi from the position. That nade should take down a couple of them. The rest of the Eastern Stars come in. The fight that started out so well for Unicorns of Love just ends right here and now to a nade from himself.
Kapahala falling, the only one from the Eastern Stars to go down, but there is a long way to go now. The north shift is hard up towards the XTEAM position, the GameLord position, Shockwave as well.
Quick spin. GameLord moves up towards that northern side, leaves QODEX behind, looking more for this centralized position within the circle itself. And they know now, with it kind of being confirmed to be an urban finish, they need to find themselves some kind of building to occupy. But XTEAM currently holding so many of them. The issue is because they're split, they take a single knock and it's game over.
Ooh, I think the buggy might have just got caught on a teammate there, unfortunately. The wheel slowing them down just a little bit, but MUERTE trying to get into the middle of it all. 2 players now down. Striker leading the charge in that buggy. MADBULLS, 3 players alive. Also needing to move north and fast.
Smart moves from MADBULLS there, decide to take the complete opposite direction to the circle. As we just saw, the other team get absolutely roasted on their way in. As 4 Romanian men have been holding these high grounds for a long, long time, but Team Doom just zoom past them.
4 Romanian men on the ground floors now. Andre on the outside, Runner up on the ceiling, Killer on the outside as well. Eventually looking to play the stairwell. Endpoint spray there, but not anyone to spray at, unfortunately. Easy. Gets spotted. It's 4 Romanian men to find one. Frosty falls as well to a heads-up push. Distraction is good. 4 Romanian men, they move through fast, brutal, efficient, and they take down Team Doom.
Only really Killer taking any damage in that engagement. So, yeah, very well done to 4 Romanian men. They've been looking a little bit more steady during today. Phase 1 may have had the better of them towards that first weekend, but this time around looking a lot smoother for the 4 Romanian men. QODEX do make their way across just behind GameLob, but this is the issue, is that it's just so out in the open, and GameLob's able to find a position where, you know, they can start to set up some vehicles and set up some crossfires for themselves.
Yeah, with the circle moving away from them as well now. QODEX caught on the long side. GameLord having to make a push, and XTEAM shut them down a little bit. Look at the spread from XTEAM right now. They are very far apart when you consider the terrain.
Yeah, I was mentioning this earlier, that it's one of those positions where you have to play it very confidently, and I think XTEAM today, again, it's that limit testing that we were talking about before, that they just want to see how far they can go and stop playing so timid. Salazar kind of whiffs that nade a little bit. Narvalo, I think GameLord maybe moved. Honestly, it's hard to say. That push is just a death trap no matter what you do.
Yeah, there's no good decisions to be made here, really. It's only the least bad of the bunch that you're looking for. XTEAM with the high ground, Nightmare, with such an incredible vantage point as the backstop for XTEAM on their position. They're exerting a lot of control here, but only the one limb to be found so far.
Yeah, but control is what you need. And again, you'll pick up a couple of limbs towards the end of the game anyway if you can continue to hold this. I think Ruthless Esports losing Salazar was a bit of a big mistake.
Ooh, MUERTE on the sidelines, last standing now for QODEX, and Nano Baby has spotted it out. They knew that position, it was scouted earlier, but the corner not really giving too much respite. And the spray comes in, that's Ruthless Esports down. I don't think these reses are possible. Might be a solo run from here on out for MUERTE, but no, they want to save their team.
They're on a slowish side of the circle, so if he picks him up and kind of pulls him a little bit further in, he might be able to get him up if he drops a first aid quick enough. Again, does decide to just leave him, sends in an XTEAM's got eyes on, tries to go central.
Ooh, that's not going to work out. All 4 of XTEAM immediately on the swivel. MUERTE goes down. QODEX eliminated. VIRTUS.PRO, 2 players alive. MADBULLS, they're playing with just the one at the moment. Skills, last player. Very close to Old Boy right now. Not the sort of guy you want to tussle with. Not if you can help it. Mer on the upstairs as well. Repositions. I know there's a player nearby, so they want a different angle here. VIRTUS.PRO now spot out this push from Death Machine. All 4 of them alive. One is knocked, and they're brought down to 3. Nightmare is dismounted as well. That's a really important pickup for this push for Death Machine. They managed to look for that ground floor, but Zombie absolutely on the money with the spray.
XTEAM are looking to take their first win of Phase 1. 2 eliminations. Again, it's just that control, though. It's been the big thing. MUERTE takes some sprays through the smoke. There's not a lot of other teams here with that much of a good position. Unfortunately, with Zombie going down, that does leave XTEAM down to 3. Shots over towards Mia. Has to duck back into cover, but can't quite get it as NEXUS unloads the entire clip into his face.
I know that frustration of where your spray is just a millimeter too high and you're like, I just need to drag it down more. And then you overcorrect or you're worried about It's awful. But it does manage to find that last spray, that last bullet. NEXUS now, though, in trouble. XTEAM swings out wide, looks for the drop shot, put to bed. Beg for mercy. Will be taking one down. 4 eliminations now for XTEAM and 3 alive.
I think today and the few bits of success that XTEAM's been able to find has kind of reinvigorated the team a little bit. And Beg for Mercy, you know, he has always been an extremely good player. Unfortunately, XTEAM just haven't started off strong at all. And again, the difficulty lobby has gone up massively, so someone has to be at the bottom of the bunch. But XTEAM today, you've got to be proud of them if you're a fan or you're supporting them from home, because today has just been all about getting rid of any shackles, any wariness in this lobby, and just going gung-ho. And I'm absolutely all for it, to be honest with you.
4 Romanian men. They've had quite an impact on this game in this urban finish. 6 eliminations so far, but now just with 1 player left. Eastern Stars, 2 players alive, 5 eliminations. As Athis moves forwards. Shockwave just around the corner. XTEAM, they're sweeping in from the north side, but they're 3 players strong. Shockwave are split, much more than XTEAM.
For Eastern Stars, you know, this is a real opportunity for them in this game. Even with the 2 players, with the angles that are around this location, it's an opportunity for them to bridge the gap between them and MADBULLS so they can start to try and make the big sprint tomorrow and the day after that to try and take the top spot away. I think they really did start out very strong in the beginning of our phase. But now this game is tricky.
Andre is the crouching tiger right now. On the deck, biding time. Circle doesn't really go to anyone. I mean, Shockwave are right in the middle, so they will have the best time of it here. XTEAM will have to push in from the north side, potentially covered from Eastern Stars and VP.
Yeah, there's practically no cover here for Eastern Stars. And I don't know how much utility they have left in terms of smokes to get their way across. I mean, Athis is already a case where he has to push out of the blue. Doesn't want to give away the position as of yet, rather waiting for the rest of the team to start moving in. With Shockwave right in the center, it's kind of the worst thing to happen to you if you are Shockwave, because now you've got practically all the other teams looking at your location. Now there's the run from Eastern Stars to make their way out as the fight begins. Very good timing from them.
Zombie shutting down those off angles as well, taking one of VIRTUS.PRO out of the mix. Now looking for that challenge, but there's more bullets landing their way. The flush comes in, and Old Boy will go no longer. Up against the wall. Do they know that he's there? Zombie trying to find it, but do XTEAM need the backup? Eastern Stars eliminated in the meantime. VP down to 1. It's a 3v3 between these main teams. Mer has to step up. Could have been spotted by Zombie. I don't think it was. Beg for mercy. Potentially with an angle. Shockwave getting pushed out. An XTEAM from the north side doing a lot of work here. Mer spotted as Shockwave find that final elimination. Can Aiza get Trazen back up before XTEAM find them?
Again, they're just sweeping around the side. Zombie looking for some more. Finds the angle just as it's still up. Does find one, though.
There's a player up top. There's 2, in fact. Andy and Beg for Mercy are there. Beg for Mercy is dropping down and will get the spray. There was a Molotov to burn them down, but it was not needed. It is XTEAM with the first chicken dinner of this phase so far. From the bottom of the tables, they needed this result.
Absolutely, and I think for XTEAM, I will keep saying it today, they have been limit testing and they've broken their limiter today as well and gone further beyond, which is what you always want to see from a team. You know, it did feel like they were a little bit too careful in the first half of the phase, a little bit too scared of these other teams, but they've come out kicking and they just look a lot better today overall. Yes, they don't get the huge amount of points, but just in terms of team fighting, it doesn't look like it's a lay down and die type of moment for XTEAM anymore. They can at least take this hand-to-hand with the teams and come out, you know, with a few bruises, but they're certainly giving them some blinders back.
Absolutely, it was really, really nicely played. The shift did go up their way a couple of times, but that final circle, I feel like Zombie really played very, very well on that off angle, right? Anchoring the team from the back, stopping VP from doing pretty much anything. VP could have potentially been quite a big problem for them had they not been able to curtail that push with a nice off angle there, and they were able to land those nades effectively.
100%, and I think the biggest thing you've got to consider here is that XTEAM, they make the right call in a very difficult position within the circle, right? Is that they just wanted to get as much control as possible, and holding down all those buildings by themselves is not... It's not easy, right? And they're able to do it, and that comes with caution. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to give you another caution because we're heading over some very handsome guys, so make sure that you put your sunglasses on and keep your eyes away from the sun.
I hope I'm not that bright. No, I'm not that bright. Maybe I got my shaders on already over my my camera. But gentlemen, we do see XTEAM take a win. As Blake was saying, not a lot of points for them, but a big confidence booster here for the team who had the highest point scoring match ever in PMPL Western Europe history.
Yeah, it's good to see them game stuff a game here. I do have to say that a lot of the teams coming their way at the end, they were wounded. They were not fully stacked. They were still remaining as a 3-man crew until the very end, so they were able to just hold down the 4 and game stuff those 9 eliminations on board. So 24 points. The thing is, they were so far behind before this game that I think this is just going to barely put them back in the race with some of the bottom teams. So this was a necessary game for them to have a chance to potentially get back in top 12 for that Livid game. But yeah, it was long overdue, and we finally see a win for them.
Start of the day, they had 20 points. So at least doubling their points today off this one match alone, it's a good sign. But as you said, Max, they need to have way more matches like this if they want to be able to contest.
Yeah. what was it, 20 points in 15 games before the start of the day. That's a bit of a panic moment. I think the seeds were sown a little bit at the start of the day, though, where it came to our first Miramar, because, I mean, Zombie took out 3 of Na'Vi as they were trying to enter, which is already a kind of a big scalp to take, I think. And then being able to hold out in Los Leones. Circle went their way, which is nice, but again, when you're transitioning from building to building and trying to deal with these fights, it can get messy. So at least they were able to hold down during all of that.
Yeah, I think we always need to like defend our predictions as well, because when we saw it centering over Los Leones, we're all just like, hey, let's just all pick different teams, because you never know what's going to happen with the city finish.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we all took like teams on different locations on the map too, because you just don't know where the circle's going to go. I picked a team to the west, you picked a team down south, I believe, Kalaris, and then over to the east it was Shockwave for you, and the circle shifts north. Of course, that's where it's going to go eventually, so it makes it a bit tough to be on the money for the predictions. But you know, some teams were able to still try and fight tooth and nail through that position. Eastern Stars is a team that actually did have a lot of good fights that came their way, but unfortunately taken fight after fight after fight. You're going to lose numbers, and then you arrive at the final boss, which is XTEAM, and then you're just, well, we don't have the resources to take this fight anymore, so
yeah.
We guess it's like a 2nd, 3rd, 4th place finish, and the win is just out of the question.
For sure. If there was going to be any thorn in the side for XTEAM during this, it would have been, I guess, from an unlikely entrance of Game Lord on their west side, but I mean, even that was dispatched off pretty handedly. There were a few teams shooting at Game Lord as they were trying to approach, and their approach as a whole was just a little bit slower than I was hopefully kind of anticipating. So yeah, XTEAM had a lot of room to work with.
Well, I mean, we are 100% today on our predictions, to be fair. 100% bad. None of us predicting a single match correct, but you know what? That's fine. If one of us goes down, at least we all go down together. I'm happy about that, even though you guys didn't do me the same courtesy when I was the only one not guessing correctly on a prior day. But our MVP, let's take a look who it's going to be on the day. And now, Max, I know we were talking before about, I think it was MUERTE being extremely high in eliminations, extremely high when it comes to MVPs. I'm curious if he's going to be able to do it yet again, though I don't think they've been able to do that well today.
I think for MVP on the day, we had that big pop-off game from Icy, and I think that might be, like, he had got like almost 900 damage to. I think that might be enough because you had a lot of new teams showing up, so I think there's a chance it might be him. But I think overall, I think MUERTE is still top 4 MVP place currently.
I'm going to go with English for today.
Oh, good pick also, yeah.
Okay, well, let's see. Who's our MVP on the day? Remember, the MVP at the end of the whole event will be getting themselves some extra money. And it will be Icy.
Hell yeah.
He had, what, 9 eliminations in that match, and he has 13 overall in the day, so
yeah. The thing is
one match.
I didn't see anyone get remotely close in that one big pop-off game to him, and if he just gets a few eliminations here and there, it's really in line to some of the MVPs we had in the last few days. Like, some day we had MUERTE, it was MVP on the day was 12 eliminations. I was like, he is really close already, so Icy does make a lot of sense. And he is the pop-off player that we said we wanted to see more of, but we need to see more setup around him, which on that chicken dinner game they got early on Erangel, the setup was key, and he was in such good positions. You can see on those nades in particular versus Pioneer, like, he was controlling the lobby with the help of his team. If we can see more of that, Icy could be a true MVP contender for the entire season, maybe.
Yeah, and I think one thing I am worried about, though, with Unicorns of Love is we've been saying, I feel like for a year now, is you can't have a team, though, that only has one pop-off player, because if Icy can't pop off on that day, then your team's not getting that many points, right? So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I want to see, like, Crypto, you're talking about before, Kalaris, step up a little bit more, though we had a relatively good game in the match that they did win. But we need to see some more out of Unicorns of Love. But to be fair, on this day, a lot of the teams who were, not top 10 were able to pick up some big wins here, so kudos to them. And we'll take a look at a quick recap of who won our matches in the day. MUERTE getting 2 in a row back-to-back, though, Kalaris. That was phenomenal and desperately what they needed to get up the leaderboards.
Yeah, this was a big fight back, as you say, from the teams that needed the points. Shockwave, MUERTE, Unicorns of Love, XTEAM especially, all the way down at the very bottom here to try and punch back up. And I'm going to be honest, coming into today, I was not expecting this at all. I kind of expected those top teams to continue consistently with their push forwards, especially teams like MADBULLS, who I think have been caught in a lot of rough situations today to try and get to the next circles and then kind of bled out here, there, and everywhere. So this is great to kind of shore up the middle pack and see who can be able to take those top spots later on.
Yeah. I mean, we saw some teams then being able to do it today. I still want to see more from, like, ARB. I want to see more from RUTHLESS, and in particular Na'Vi, right? We pointed them out as, like, the big outlier of the bottom teams. it's still not happening for Na'Vi, and they're just getting bodied by like XTEAM at some point. They're having those weird early drops versus Big on the northwestern island in Sanhok. There's a lot of things that need fixing right now for Na'Vi, and we're about done with the first phase here. So, I mean, Na'Vi, where they currently stand, they might not even make in the final living match, which would come as a very big surprise for the first phase.
Well, let's actually check in where they currently stand as well as the other teams in our overalls. At the end of 4 days out of 6 here in our first phase, MADBULLS still going to be first place and by 30 points. So they've actually extended their lead from the start of the day somehow, Kalaris.
Yeah, so not too bad in the slightest. I mean, some of the starting efforts that they were able to put in, they were able to get some top 5 positions, etc. and stuff like that, which is okay. And then that 2nd through 5th pack that I was kind of alluding to in the previous games, whatever, which was very close to one another, maybe like 6 points or so. There's been a little bit of a gap between that 2nd through 5th now. QODEX not really doing a huge amount, it feels like, today, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would say overall the big step up has been VIRTUS.PRO, right? Starting off the day in 6th position. I mean, it's not even just been today, is they've been speeding up their gameplay process a lot since the first day of the tournament. Day 2 was a little bit better. Day 3 was really where they showed up big time when it comes to those converting those eliminations. And today it just feels like it's pretty much a normal day for them. They're just going aggressive, getting those eliminations in. Because they do so, they get themselves into the late game a little bit more often. So they now close the gap with Eastern Stars. They could have been 2nd place, but they're not quite. But they are, I would say, racing up to catch up to MADBULLS right now. And MADBULLS sure get themselves some decent points down there, but VIRTUS.PRO, I think they're feeling the groove right now. They're feeling really comfortable in the lobby right now.
Yeah, and again, right, like you still have time to catch up. Also, placing maybe 3rd at the end of the phase isn't really a death sentence. You still get a ridiculous amount of points to go with you into the finals. And then obviously when we start off phase 2, we'll be resetting the points yet again here within that phase. But you can see Na'Vi 15th, Big 16th place, but then Unicorns Love have gone up to 10th, Shockwave have gone up to 9th, even TJB have gone up, are around 11th place. I'm not gonna say necessarily gone up here for them, but some big teams stepping up, but again, some big teams not performing. I never would have said going into this phase that Na'Vi would be below, you know, some of these teams. I wouldn't say they would ever be out of top 12, to be honest.
I mean,
which is surprising after seeing how everyone was talking about the scrims and Na'Vi potentially doing well. It does come as a big surprise that scrims potentially performing well, but the actual event is just, it's been downhill from the very start.
You could go further than that as well. I mean, broadly speaking, aside from CIS, Big and Ruthless being down here for me is quite the shocker as well, considering the level at which those two rosters can actually perform, and we have seen them perform here in Western Europe. So, there's still time, but yeah, it's not easy at the moment.
Yeah, and for Ruthless, like this team has been playing PMPLs for like a year and a half, 2 years, right? They have tons of experience under their belt. And last season, they did do decently well, but they haven't been able to replicate that performance with Salazar on the team. Maybe not going for enough vehicle eliminations for us. Maybe that's why it's been going on with them.
That's it.
But guys, that does round out our day here. We've had our 4th day of our first phase now done. We'll be back tomorrow at the exact same time, though. We still have 2 days of play. And of course, on that 2nd day, we'll be having a special match of Livic with just our top 12 teams and some extra points for teams to use to potentially lengthen their lead when it goes into the finals. But thank you again for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow at the same time here for some more PMPL action.
goodbye.